have their like stuff near their name. I just have my name.
It's fine.
I was just gonna put my first name.
We'll never be able to
Like,
find
they know me, so let me just add.
It's fine. We're going to go around and introduce ourselves. Hi, everyone. I guess we can give people a second to pop in. But welcome to day 2 of Black Girls Create first digital convention, our Kumba kickback. If you missed day 1, that's on our account. You can go watch that after day 2. So today we're going to be talking about being Black in Potter podcasting. Potter, I think we called it Potter casting, actually. No, Potter podcasting. So we're chatting with a few. We're waiting on one person. They may pop in, they may not. And if they do, we'll just add them. But we'll go ahead and start by going around. Let's give our name, our house, and our pronouns, and just the title of your podcast. We'll start with Bayana because we already been you, but go ahead.
I am Bayana. She, her pronouns. I'm a Ravenclaw. For more reasons than all this color palette that's going on right now. And I am co-host of the Wizard Team podcast.
Go ahead, Jessie. I'm just going in order.
We're going like this way or whichever way. My name is Jessie Blount. I am a Gryffindor. My pronouns are she, her, and my podcast is The Gaily Prophet.
All right.
I'm Jania. I have she, her pronouns. I'm a Slytherin with Ravenclaw moon signs, and I am the host of the House of Black podcast.
Cool. And I'm Delia, she, her pronouns, and I'm a Ravenclaw. I host no podcast, but I guest on them from time to time. So I guess we'll start with, I know you guys named your podcast, but there's different types of Potter podcasts out there. So kind of just give us a brief overview of like what your podcast is, what, niche it's filling, all that. Same order.
I guess I'll go. So Wizard Team is a chapter, or originally was we went through the series chapter by chapter, doing like a close read. And we finished last August. We started in September of 2015, and then we finished last August. And now we're currently doing the Fantastic Beasts screenplay.
Sorry about it.
This is a journey, and it's great. It honestly, it's fun. It's not fun. The material isn't fun, but the act of recording the podcast is great and has always been great. But yeah, so we mostly come at it. My co-host is my cousin Robin, and we come at it from the perspective of just our experiences. I think that when we first started it, we very much were just we want to talk to each other about Harry Potter. Maybe we should do a podcast, and people are listening now. But at the heart of it, it's really just two cousins talking about a thing that they love and bringing ourselves and our experiences into it. And so in doing that, it is we talk about being Black women often and talk about our perspectives in that through that lens, sometimes more deliberately than others. Other times it's just we are just, we're talking mess, and that's really what we excel at, is talking mess. So yeah, that's what we do.
Go ahead, Jessie.
All right. So I also have a co-host. He is not Black, but the Gaily Prophet is a kind of a queer feminist close reread of the Harry Potter. We're currently on book 3, and so it's one of my favorites. And so me and my co-host are really kind of looking at it as we're looking at it, picking apart the politicalness of the series, both good and bad, very, very bad, and just kind of looking at it as two queer people who are obsessed with Harry Potter, and also want to discuss our queer headcanons of so many of the characters.
It's kind of my favorite part, following you guys. The tweets be out here, and I live for it.
Yeah, and also doing a reading where we're assuming that, of course, Hermione is Black.
Yeah, absolutely.
Then, even Harry is a POC,
Love
and
it.
it's, talking about the book in a way that is deeply, deeply critical and gay.
Is that y'all's new? Is that the tagline?
Actually, one of our new tagline is hilarious yet ruthless, because
I did see that. We for those who don't know, which if you're here, you probably know, we featured Jessie as this month. That was this month, right? Yeah, this month. It's still up on our. I don't think it's the pin tweet this month because we have Black Wizard History Month stuff pinned, but you can go find it, check it out. It's a great interview. Go ahead, Jania.
Okay, so I'm pretty new to podcasting. I just started my podcast like at the end of August. So I do it by myself, but I do have guests on from time to time. So like usually like a close friend of mine. And so at first I had planned the name of the podcast before I knew what I wanted to do with it. So I was like, how cool would it be to like have a podcast about Harry Potter, but call it The House of Black because I'm Black? I was like, all right. So like it kind of just went from there. And so basically like I just do like these deep dive analyses kind of along the same lines as like what you do on yours, Jessie. It's like just reading between the lines for different stuff. And I definitely like read Harry as not white and obviously read Hermione as Black. But yeah, it's been interesting so far. Like I knew podcasting was a lot of work, but it's a lot of work. So like that was something to get used to. But we just wrapped up book 2 last week, so this week we're going to be starting on book 3, and I'm really excited because it's one of my favorites.
And so you're going chapter by chapter, or are you?
I kind of do every 2 chapters, but for Chamber of Secrets, I ended up making the last episode just be the last 3 chapters. But it's gone by pretty quick, so I kind of want to like break it down. But luckily, the books are just getting longer. So I can kind of keep with this for a little bit. So I'll probably keep on doing.
I still haven't caught up on it, but there's another podcast, Goblet of Wine. They did every two chapters or something like that. But I think they said like, I think it makes sense. Like once you get to the later books, like each chapter is much more meaty. So That's
pretty much what I'm doing. And then like just trying to figure out what else to do to it. Cause like whenever I actually just started listening to Gay with Prophet like last week, and this is such a cool name, and so like I listened to it.
We talked about that yesterday. That
like a newspaper. I was like, this is so cool. So I'm listening to it, and I'm like, wow, everybody has like segments and stuff, and I just, all right, here we go. Let's jump into it. And then like an hour of me talking.
Let me tell you the reason that we have segments is that both me and Lark have ADHD, and if we didn't have something in order to like basically regiment like how we break up the podcast, it like wouldn't exist because it would just be like digression, and it's like no one's gonna want to listen to that.
I mean, Wizard Team definitely has those episodes.
We have like we kind of have segments, and then we kind of don't. It's a mix, and somewhere in the middle, it just either devolves or it doesn't, and we never know until we're in the middle of the thing.
I remember when I was first listening to Wizard Team, there were definitely episodes where I would realize, because I would listen to it on my lunch. That's when I first started listening. I would listen to on my lunch, which was an hour, and I'd be driving back, and I'd realize, oh wow, we haven't gotten past like the news. We're not in the chapter yet.
No,
like that.
There have been plenty of times where we're like, oh, we are only on the first page, and it is like we should continue with the rest of it. So yeah.
So what drove you guys to create a podcast about Harry Potter? Like what was, I mean, you sat down, I mean, now at this point, you guys are sitting down creating a whole hour or more, depending who you are, of content, but like, how did you get here? Let's go in the opposite order. We'll start with Jania. keep it fresh.
So I wanted to do a podcast for like the longest time. I tried to do one related to history because I was in grad school at the time, but I think I got burnt out from that very quickly. So I was like, okay, not doing that, but I still want to do a podcast. I was like, what is the one thing I can talk about for literal hours? And I was like, oh, got it. So it kind of was just like, this would be a cool name. And then I went on Canvas and started like messing with like logos. And then I came up with the one that I made where it looks like a Black Power fist holding a snitch. And I was like, it's 2 a.m., but this is kind of cool. So, and it basically was just like, I did the first episode and I was like, whoa, I really like this. But I knew I wanted to do something in podcasting, but I was like, this is the one thing I know, like I could kill it because I talk about it all the time on Twitter. I talk about it all the time in person if I find the right person to talk about it. So it was like, once I did it, I was like, okay. And then once I got past my first 4 episodes, I was like, oh, I'm really doing this because the first podcast I tried to do, I didn't go past 4 episodes. So I think one of the coolest things has been seeing like this thing that I just randomly wanted to do, like blossoming into this thing that now has like almost 20 episodes, I think. So I'm just like, wow, look at me being not backing out. Love that. So, yeah, that's probably kind of how I got started on that.
Cool.
Oh, having projects, yay. So part of the reason why I started my podcast is that the first like analytical Harry Potter podcast I listened to was Witch Please, which was by 2 like academic.
I said, oh, interesting. I haven't heard of that one.
Yeah, so it's a podcast. It's by it's not on anymore. It was by 2 academics talking about Harry Potter, but they did a book by book. Like one episode was a book, and so it's immediately like, okay, but like I would have listened to you guys for like 100 more episodes, you know? And so and Lark is a good friend of mine. He's like best friends with my girlfriend, and so we always talk about like, yeah, I wish that like Witch Please would have gone on for like so long because you could really get into it chapter by chapter. And then Lark moved away and like across the country, and I'm like, we should have a podcast so we can talk about Harry Potter, which we do in real life all the time. And so we're like, all right, cool. We'll have a podcast. We'll see how this goes. A friend of Lark's, who also does some of the graphic design and comic creating for our podcast, Theo, came up with the name, The Gaily Prophet.
Such a fire. Amani even in the chat says it's a fire name.
I'm just forever in his debt because I'm like, this is I would have never really no one else did because we have thegailyprophet.com, which I'm still shocked by.
Wow.
Right. And so clearly we're filling a niche because while there are queer people who are like doing nerd-based podcasts and like talking about Harry Potter, like it's not like necessarily there wasn't anyone doing it like, you know, queer Harry Potter podcast, and definitely no one where it's like, one queer Black woman and like, one white trans guy doing a Harry Potter reread. So I'm like, we have a niche at least.
Yeah. It was so cool, like finding y'all. I was like, okay, I'm not by myself. Because I mean, at first I was like, well, okay, I'm a Black bi person. We're about to get into this. Like, let's go apart. And I was like, okay. So then I found y'all, and I was like, what? All right. So I was just like, okay, there's people like trying to do the same thing. And I think like in order, I started listening to Wizard Team like 2 or 3 years ago, back when I was still in undergrad or something. And one of my friends, she's actually white. I don't know how she found out about this, but she saw it and she was like, I think you would love this. They have a page called Black Girls Create, blah, blah, blah. And I did kind of a double take because I had been following Black Girls Create. I just didn't know about the podcast. And I was like, where did you find this at? She was like, I just happened upon it. I thought you would like it. And so just to kind of like listen and be like, okay, because at the time I was only listening to like Harry Potter Sacred Text, which was kind of my inspiration, I think, in terms of like the breaking down everything. But Like the first kind of thing that was like, I think I could do this was probably listening to Wizard Team and being like, okay, so somebody out here's already doing this and they are Black as well. So there's at least a chance of success.
Yeah, I feel that because as far as like, I don't have a podcast, so I won't get to Bayana next, but definitely like up until finding Wizard Team, the only Harry Potter podcast I had ever listened to, tried to listen to, caveat, were definitely really white. And so I just didn't even think there were people out there with the same, even a similar lens to me, like dissecting these books. But speaking of, since Wizard Team was my first, how did you guys decide to make a podcast, Bayana?
Oh, it was a lot of things. So one of like the main things is that, so Robin and I didn't grow up together, and she's like older than me. So we found out, we didn't realize, like we had both been kind of consuming Harry Potter on our own, 15. And I went to like visit, and we both realized at the same time that like, oh wait, you like Harry Potter, but not only do you like Harry Potter, you like Harry Potter. You know what I mean? Like there's a difference between just being like, oh yeah, like we both read the books. Like now we like ended up spending that entire time reading the books, watching the movies. Like my aunt kicked us out of the house. We went to go buy a Harry Potter book. We like, it was just like all these things. It was just that. And since then we had like, we would visit each other. We would do like Harry Potter movie marathons. We would spend all this time talking about hours. And then when she moved up to the Bay Area, it was like, we kind of just realized that we were spending all of this time talking about this thing, and that there was something we could do with that. And like, so Robin had been wanting to do a podcast for a while, and we had just started Black Girls Create. And we kind of were like thinking about like, okay, what will we do? Like what, you know, do you want to do a podcast? What's the topic, whatever. And we figured out, so then we decided we were going to do Harry Potter. And really what sold me was that I would get to buy a whole new set of books. Because I was like, oh, because like I majored in English in college. I was like, oh, I get to buy these books and then I get to write in them. Like, oh, I was like, cool. So like literally we didn't really think much about it. It was more like, we should do this podcast. We should do a Harry Potter podcast. Oh, we could buy the books. Oh, that's already bought on Amazon. They get here. And like a week later, we started. Like it was very like, just, we kind of got excited. And so again, I think when we first started it was very much just like, you know, we get to sit here and we get to talk to each other. We had maybe like 3 listeners, and it was like, that's fine. We just want to talk about it. And if other people like it, cool. But, and then it just, as things kept going, we ended up kind of delving more into the fandom, which neither of us had really done. Kind of seeing spaces that we could kind of occupy and fill and like share our voice. And so it's turned into this bigger thing, but I think like at the core of it, it's still just like the two of us having a reason, an excuse to like hang out. So yeah.
That's truly what it is right now with Fantastic Beasts, because
ain't
nobody would read that in them dings.
No one.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying the Fantastic Beasts read because I don't want to watch the movies unless literally someone wants me to watch them.
No.
Great. Anything in the commentary?
Well, we used to like, so
I mean,
when we were doing the actual reads, we would watch the movie at the end. Like when we came to the end of the book, we would watch the movie and then discuss it. And like we did do a review of the first Fantastic Beasts when it first came out. And I think that was the last. I thought that was it. At that point, we were like, okay, we don't want to do that anymore. But like at one point, I was like, oh shit, since we're doing this, does that mean that we have to like watch the movie again? Because I would like to not. And I think we decided that we're not doing it. Thank goodness.
Good, because I was like, well, if you're live tweeting it, I may be busy that day.
When I get to Cursed Child, I'm dreading it because I know like the people who listen to my phone and be like, do Cursed Child, do Cursed, and I haven't read it. But I remember when I got it, like when it came out, somebody gave it to me and all the reviews were saying like, this is terrible. This is like a really poorly written fan fiction. And I was like, not JK. I was like, she wouldn't do us like that. So I went on Wikipedia. I said, let me just read the summary because I don't care about spoilers. I'm not like ruined by that. So I read it, and just my face as I'm reading the article, I was just like,
Yeah, no, I wouldn't recommend doing it. If there's any way you could get out of doing it, like, because we did that in the, like, before we started Fantastic Beasts, because we just started Fantastic Beasts in January, and so we did it. We took like a brief hiatus and then did Cursed Child through the end of the last year, and I just was like seething with anger. Whereas like Fantastic Beasts, I'm more like, this is not good, but like whatever. But Cursed Child had me like legitimately like angry, even though I had like, I knew what was gonna happen. It's awful, and I'm sure, you know, it's entertaining for the listeners, I guess, but like, you have to think self-care is important too.
apparently seeing it live is very magical.
It is, until you realize that it's bad. Like, it's great up until you get the realization where you're like, oh no, what's happening? And then you're trying to, like, you can never go back once you realize.
I think you can never go back.
What's angry is that I feel like literally every Harry Potter fan that I know could have written something better than Cursed Child. And I think
I've read
better plot lines than Cursed Child.
That's why it's like, it's bad fan fiction, because fan fiction can be great. It can be better than books sometimes.
Fan fictions. Oh my god! And then I'm like, why aren't you just writing Cursed? Like,
right?
I could have wrote that at age 12. I could have written it, and whatever I wrote at age 12 would have likely been better than this.
So much better.
And honestly, if it was a fan fiction, I wouldn't be mad at it, because it's like creative. You can do whatever you want. Yeah, it doesn't have to be canon. But the fact that this is meant to be canon is why I'm like,
it's
hold up. Let's not. We truly hate to see it.
No.
So anyway, I mean, we could have another panel on all the issues with Cursed Child, because that is its own panel. Good Lord, it's
we really do need to do that.
Yeah, we probably do. We probably should.
Apart things that we don't like about
next year's Kuumba kickback. Catch us on this Cursed Child is trash panel. So what has been y'all's experience as non-white Harry Potter fans and podcasters? Because you may not be able to separate the two at this point. Whoever wants to take it can jump into it.
So I have, all right. So I'm one of those people who, like, I grew up reading Harry Potter. Like, I read, like, book 4 came out when I was 14. And then the last book came out when I was, like, graduated college. So, like, I'm one of those people. So I remember when book 6 came out, and then fans found out that it was canon that Blaise the Beanie was black. And up until like 5 years, I'd been 4 years, however long I'd been in fandom in that time. So like 2 books later, 2 books. It's like so many fanfic writers had been like, Blaise is clearly Italian, and everyone's like, Blaise is clearly, and so it's kind of like an author fill-in of whatever they wanted Blaise to be. Blaise would be, just because there's only like 4 named Slytherins, and 2 of them are Crabbe and Goyle, which you can't really put in a fic to be like characters that like have dialogue, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And so when it turned out that like Blaise was black, so many white fans lost their shit.
They lost
their goddamn minds. There was so much angry, hateful, fucked up shit said on like LiveJournal. This is how old I am. Fucking LiveJournal. That must have been in high school. I don't remember how old I was, but I was just like, why? What the fuck is happening? You guys really having 1,000 LiveJournal comments about this that are hateful and fucked up?
Yeah, and you can still find fic from that before that time when Blaise was a white girl or a white boy. They did both.
Right, and then of course, so immediately, no one shipped anyone with Blaise anymore, which I'm like, are you guys fucking shitting me? And so. And like I feel like that was like, and like I was young enough where I wasn't paying as close attention to sort of like how white fandom was. I was aware that like only my weird black friends read Harry Potter, and like my siblings were also weirdos. So I'm kind of like, all right, I'm a nerd, that's fine. But like that was the moment where I'm like, oh, this fandom is real white, and people don't want Slytherins to be black. I guess I don't know. It was just. I was kind of just like, oh, fuck all of y'all.
I think I feel like I'm showing my age, but I was like 10 when Half-Blood Prince came out. So when the last book came out, I think I was like 13, 12, going on 13. So that was around the time where I was starting to, like, I remember reading fan fiction between book 6 and book 7. Mm-hmm. And at first, like, happening upon it and being like, oh my God, this is so scary. Because I wasn't just reading, like, just I was reading some scandalous things.
Not the reason any of us read fan fiction, like, real.
It was a dark time. But, like, I don't think I became, like, fully cognizant of, like, how white fandom was until I got on Tumblr heavily in, like, 2011, I believe. And, like, I remember when people would do, like, their fan casting, and like I always followed like the Black people who were Harry Potter fans, so it didn't like really click to me, and then that's when I started seeing a lot of like the criticisms of the series about how like Hermione theoretically would be Black, like what white people do you know have giant frizzy curly hair that's difficult to tame, like who, you know, and then just kind of seeing like different things about that. It was the first time I ever saw a fan cast that put Harry as someone who wasn't white, and I was like, oh, I like this. This is cool.
It's one of those things. As soon as you see it, you're like, oh, yep, definitely that.
It makes the reading and the treatment of the Dursleys make so much more sense.
It makes sense. This is like, you know, I said in my first episode, I was like, why would they hate him this much? Because you can't just look at him and know he's different. He just looks like a regular white boy. So he would have to look visibly different as well in order for this to be happening. And it wasn't until like I remember when the Cursed Child play was announced, because I think that came before the book. And when it was announced that like grown up Hermione was going to be like not just a Black woman but like a Black woman, I was like, the girls were upset about it. They were like, no, it can't be because this and blah blah blah. And I was like, all right. And then I think when I became most like the peak where I was like, oh, this is fucked, is when I saw Fantastic Beasts 2. And there's like the storyline of Lita Lestrange being born.
Look, do you want to change the panel to that? Let's go.
Yeah, like because her mom was like an enslaved Black woman.
Yeah.
And
wait,
died.
I don't think what?
Well, okay, yeah, so Lita Lestrange, Zoe Kravitz's character, she is part of the Lestrange family. Like her dad is white, Dad Lestrange. But the way she was born is that her dad saw her mom, who's this Senegalese Black woman, and basically used like a spell to keep her in captivity and kept her in a bed. And and she mysteriously got pregnant whilst in a coma.
Oh my God, that's fault.
And like died while having Lita. And so he basically treated Lita like shit, and she got bullied at Hogwarts for unknown reasons. And then he suddenly had like a white son with his new white wife, and he treated him like everything was great. And this was the same year that J.K. Rowling said that wizards don't see race, they just respect each other because
that's respect and kinship.
And like I remember seeing that and being like, bruh, and people were asking like, okay, how in the Fantastic Beasts series do you have a Black woman as like the president of the entire American magical community in the 1920s? How is that happening? And so she was like, it just, no one notices race. And I was like, bro, what? And so like, that was when I really got into like super critical, like commentary of fandom period. Was like
that was recent. That's not like, we're not talking like, oh, back in the 90s or early 2000s.
No, yeah, but like, you guys. I was never like, I don't want to say I wasn't like aware, but like, I just never
at that point
about it. But I realized, like, I was in the theaters watching Fantastic Beasts 2. So this is unfolding before my eyes. And I'm like, what the fuck? And I remember saying that, like, in the theater. And it was just, like, I had, like, a 17 tweet thread of all my grievances with it afterwards. And it was just, but that was the first time I really became aware that, like, okay, I'm seeing something's wrong. But other people are seeing it, too, for the same reasons that I'm seeing it. And so that was kind of when I became more aware. Harry Potter was like my singular fandom, you know, that Twilight maybe, but like we all knew Twilight was white just from looking at it. So it wasn't like we didn't really have high hopes.
We all went in with that. I mean, I read all the books.
I think once I got older and I got into college and like I started, like I was like, I still love this, but why do I love this? And like really starting to get more into it. That's when I was like, oh, my eyes have been opened.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Just so you know, Jessie, you have a lot of support in the chat as they watched you learn this in real time.
No, it's wild.
It's wild.
It's legit. Like
That's why I was like, oh, that's its own panel. We could do, because I have thoughts and feelings, many.
Yeah.
Why are they so fucking racist? I mean, between this and the shit about Nagini, I'm like, why?
They said they didn't see color.
Yeah, they didn't, so they don't know.
Okay.
I mean, really, what
white ass shit to say.
It is, and to do, because
terrible.
Yeah.
It's
awful.
Oh, we're just gonna have this, like, you know, young black woman with this like fucked up, traumatic ass, racist ass backstory.
Oh, that's her whole characterization is trauma.
She was bullied at Hogwarts. Once she got into Slytherin, she was bullied by the other students. This is in her storyline.
Because she's a monster or something.
Her friend, because he used to try to like come save her from being bullied, and she dies trying to protect Newt's brother.
Spoilers.
Sorry.
I mean,
no.
I mean,
she dies so that Newt and his brother can start talking again. It's so trash. It's so trash.
It is.
But
so many racist tropes. It's like an awful, rotten racist trope sandwich. What you just described to me.
I mean, not fun.
That's that movie, essentially.
Yep. Basically,
it's not a good time.
Yeah.
So, what's it been like for you, Bayana, being not white in the Harry Potter fandom? But see, the thing with Wizard Team is you were doing it live while all of this was
doing it live. That is true. That's true. I think so. So I didn't do fandom until I started Wizard Team, and even now I still I don't know that I ever really have done fandom like that. But like this is about the deepest I've ever been. And part of that was because like I too was a baby. And didn't like by the time the movie. I think the last one came out when I was 13. And like at that point, I wasn't really allowed to be like on the internet like that, and I am not a rebellious child, so I was just like, whatever, I'm gonna just play in AppleWorks and we'll be good. and I would go on, I would like take Scholastic like quizzes or whatever to like see how much I knew about Harry Potter.
I was the same age, but
no, I know, but like literally that was like my scope. It's like I knew that there were people talking. I mean, I may have like lucked upon or like happened upon a couple articles, and like I bought like a theory book at some point. I still have it, like when I was at the bookstore, and I was like, ooh, people are writing about this. I'm gonna read it, but. So I intellectually knew that people were like interacting with this thing and that it was like this worldwide phenomenon, but I never really like thought to or really cared to like dive deeper into that. Partially because I think I always kind of knew what it was. And so like when we a couple years ago, Robin decided that she wanted to go to a Harry Potter convention and was like, we should go. I had just moved to Chicago at the time, and so I didn't have the funds to like, I was like, I just moved, but also I was like, why? You know what I mean? I was like, I don't really see, like I kind of like in my head, I already had an idea of what it was going to look like when I got there. And to me, interacting with Harry Potter was very much about like talking to Robin and talking to like the audience that had been growing and like the community that we had been growing about those things, and like not really wanting to then take that into another space, because then I was like what in my head I was just like, what will we be doing there and like for what? And so, but she ended up going and she really loved it, and so the next year we decided, okay, we're gonna go together, we'll like do, you know, our Wizard Team stuff, we'll be on panels and stuff. And so we've been doing that the last couple years, and it has been great in some aspects, but it has also proven I've also like proven myself right in some ways. Just in like, and it feels sometimes like I think someone earlier was talking about like how it can feel like exclusive. And it's not necessarily on purpose. Like you can tell that a lot of it is just like they're not thinking about it. They're not, it's not a priority for them to make these spaces more diverse and to have more like different thoughts and experiences and these things. It's like if someone wants to bring that to us, then fine, and that's great. but like
they're not seeking
we're
it
not
out.
going to actively seek these things out. We're not going to actively give these places and spaces platforms. But if y'all want to come and do it, cool, we'll just let you do, you know what I mean? So it's all very passive. And so for me, it's been like, honestly, like the actual like content, like J.K. Rowling and like Harry Potter, that stuff has been like, for me, especially because we did this live, like somehow timing, we call it Wizard Team timing, has been impeccable in ways that are like great and not great, because like we like the cursed child, we started the podcast thinking like, oh, like nothing's really happening with Harry Potter, and then it was like Cursed Child, Fantastic Beasts, like all these things popping up like all at the same time. And at like, wow, that time she made that comment about Grindelwald and Dumbledore and their relationship was literally it was right before we were about to record The Life and Lives of Albus Dumbledore. Like literally the week before. That episode also devolved for lots of other reasons, including that reason. But it was like stuff like that where it was just like kind of, I don't know, the universe was doing some things. And so in terms of like the content in Harry Potter, I think I always just been like, yeah, it's white and I know that. And so in my head, I kind of, you know, Hermione's black, I kind of put those things onto it so that I can still enjoy it. But I think, and I also don't actively or like try to stay away from like the like overtly racist discourse that happens. Like I don't see it, but that's on purpose, you know? So like when they announced that Hermione was black, I was just like, my timeline, I'm like, Hermione's black, I don't give a fuck, it's lit. And then every once in a while I'd see like little things, or like somebody would send me a thing where they're like, somebody's mad about Hermione being black. And I was like, I don't give a fuck, I'm partying over here. So like, y'all can keep that over there. I would just be over here happy. And so I think because of that, I've kind of been able to ignore the like outwardly wild things, but have also been like trying to combat dealing with like tokenism and like being undervalued and underappreciated and taken for granted, especially when I know that I like don't have to be there. We're here, so like we can do those things and still, I don't know, just have like worthwhile experiences within the fandom without having to like combat those things, you know what I mean?
I think for me, I engage with fandom either through podcasts or through fan fiction. Like I don't actually like I don't talk to people. So that's been great. I've been having a great time. But like usually the people I do follow, the people I do talk to are also like other Black or brown people or like whatever. Like it's not these like super white fans who are like, I don't know what that is, that's not a problem, or like, so I have not had that experience like at all, but it's purely because of like how I choose to participate in fandom. That's like the biggest like role in that for me.
So what, I guess we've kind of talked, I know some, like not all of us have been to conventions and stuff, but like in general, what has the reception been like whether in person or online, on Twitter, etc., like that?
The podcast?
Yeah, to your podcast, like, and what you're doing from fandom.
For me, I guess because I'm still like kind of really just still kind of getting into things, I've had like a good reception, but it's also been like kind of limited. So I don't have like thousands of followers who are like, oh, I love you so much. You know, like it's like my little group of people. But the reception so far has been generally good. I know for the first couple of episodes, I was like super self-conscious because I was like, who is trying to hear me talk for all this time? Just me, because a lot of the other podcasts that I listened to, it wasn't one person, it was two or maybe more. And so that was the biggest thing, was I was like, it's just me and I don't have guests on all the time. So I was worried about that. But then people started sending messages and they were like, I really love it. Or like, this thing you said, you were making a good point here. Or like, what you said made me think about this, and, you know, stuff like that. And so I think for me, I think it would be cool if I had a wider audience, but also I'm just glad that there are like a few people that my podcast is resonating with.
Mm-hmm.
And so like I don't necessarily feel the pressure to like I need to build up a bigger audience and I need to do this and I need to do that. Like I'm allowing this to just be what it is for me, which is kind of like a creative outlet and like a commitment to myself to continuously be creative. And I think since I started it, I've been like, you know, I write. And so like since I've started it, I've had like the juices have been flowing. So like so for me, I think just I could get one person listening or one person commenting and being like, I love it so much, keep going. And like, I'd be like, okay. Mm-hmm. So it's gone from me feeling like I'm just talking at the wall once a week to like people are listening and digesting what I'm saying. I did get somebody like leave me like a 2-star review because they said I talked about Percy Weasley too much. And I was like, it was because I said that in Chamber of Secrets, it would have made more sense for him to get the diary instead of Ginny because he had a lot of similarities to Tom Riddle, and him ditching his family 2 books later would have made so much more sense. And so they were like, I'm just tired of hearing this person say that he could have been a serial killer every 5 minutes. I was like, but he could have.
I didn't realize folks went up for Percy like that. That's hilarious.
Yeah, that's
the
crazy.
only thing though. That's literally been it. Everything else it's been a really wonderful experience.
Yeah.
Actually, I won't lie. I will go to bat for Percy only because on the Daily Prophet, we decided that he is totally a bottom and that his girlfriend Penelope is totally topping him. And so I'm like, I'm just gonna write some fic about this. This is great. And I'm like, so I feel very like tender towards Percy, who is very obviously a bottom.
Connie's like Percy Hive rises.
Yeah, we're you know, it took a while for us to get like kind of a consistent following. We watched the numbers grow very slowly and always excited that people are like listening to us. And I feel like, and we haven't like done any in-person stuff yet. So all of it is like via like, you know, comments and like messages and emails that we get. And people seem to like, you know, what we're talking about. And it feels really good because I listen to a lot of podcasts also. I listen to a lot of podcasts and I'm just like, after a while, you're like, oh, these are like my friends are talking to me. And it's like, oh, what are you doing? And it just feels really good to imagine like someone like doing the dishes or like driving to work. And they're like, I feel really shitty. I'm just listening to Jessie and Lark talk about how Hogwarts is for an hour. And it's going to help me feel better. And I'm just like.
That has been honestly like the biggest, like, whoa, like I have a friend who has 2 very young children and like, she's like, I listen to your podcast whenever my youngest baby is asleep. And I'm like, but you could be sleeping right now. So just stuff like that, or like my friend and her boyfriend who are not remotely interested in Harry Potter at all, but they listen to it because it's my podcast, but they listen every week and like they'll text me their thoughts. And her boyfriend was like, well, I never read the books, but you're kind of making me want to now. And I was just like, ah! So like, just that is like the coolest thing that like somebody's just sitting there and they like are looking forward to seeing like a new episode from me pop up every week. Like they're like, I can't wait for this. That's been one of the coolest things.
Yeah. I think for me, it's been similar to, I think like, when we started, it was only like 3 people who were listening to us, maybe a couple more, but like barely no one. And it was like Connie randomly popping up in her mentions like, hey, this is the podcast. And we're like, girl, it is midnight where we are and you are on the East Coast. Like, that's wild. And like, just like having those like interactions, like my favorite thing, and it's still my favorite thing now. It's just now we're doing too much, so I can't really like focus on it all the time. But like, I just love how much when people like respond to us and like give us their thoughts and are like, well, this thing, and like we have a a chat now for like our patrons. So while we record, they can watch us live and give us their thoughts. And like that is another reason why our show goes off the rails. And like it's one of those things. Like I love the interacting part of it, and I love how like how people have like been able to come together and talk about this thing and make friendships and like go, to cons together and like I'll do all these things. It's so nice. Like I just love like when people like go across the country or whatever and they're like meeting up with these people, and I'm just like, oh, we did that, even though like I haven't met either of you, but I know that y'all met through like this thing, and so that part has just been like really great. And just I don't know, the ways that I don't know, it's very much not a thing that I saw myself doing even a little bit. Like it was never like a dream of mine to like sit around and talk about Harry Potter, like not in like a serious way. Like, it's great and I love it. And if I, as a kid realized that this was what I was going to be doing, I'd probably start a lot sooner. So like, yeah, it's just, I think that the reception for the most part has been really great. And it's just like a thing that I still look forward to doing. It's been like almost 4.5 years and I still look forward to doing it every week. So yeah.
We're running short on time, but I do want to get to this question just because I think it's important to talk about. What's been the most challenging thing to overcome carving out your own space in fandom?
I'd say like the imposter syndrome for me, like feeling like I listened to a lot of Harry Potter podcasts and like I was like, there's already so many, like how am I gonna be like, how is anyone gonna want to listen to this? And then also I've never done a podcast before, so like I had to do this from scratch. Like how do I record it? How do I host it? Do I have a good enough microphone? And I'm listening to other people's podcasts and I'm like, they sound like they have better sound quality than I do. Like, am I sure people are going to want to hear this mess? Like, I think the feeling of like, am I doing this for nothing at first was the kind of hardest thing. And then slowly just kind of getting to the point where like I started thinking less of like, how will this be received by everybody else? And started thinking of it more as like, am I going to keep doing it regardless of that? And so I think that's what stopped me the first time I tried to do a podcast was I was like, no one's listening, no one cares. And then, like with this thing, I was like, well, regardless, like, it's whatever. But that's been one of the hardest things. And that's just likely because like I haven't gone to any conventions. I haven't been in a position where I could like massively give people information to let them know that my podcast exists aside from Twitter. But that's probably been the biggest thing for me.
I feel like
oh, go ahead.
I just feel like promotion is always difficult. Also, I like work full time. I'm very thankful that and very lucky that Lark works from home and is able to devote a little more time than I am, or else we would still be in probably book 2. And honestly, just like I've like don't have a great track record of like consistently finishing projects, even things I want to do. So I'm like really determined to like see the Gaily Prophet through all 7 books and whatever other weird Harry Potter things are gonna come like 5 years from now. So
please be a book about the founders. We only hope.
A book about the founders or Hogwarts of history. That's the two. That's
that would be dope.
That would be a banger. I would read Hogwarts of history.
I'm a nerd, so I'm like, please give me Hogwarts of history.
Yeah.
My favorite book. I need to read it.
I'm pretty sure that would have been my favorite.
I have a great backstory for Salazar Slytherin, and I know she won't put it in, but listen, I have a theory that Salazar Slytherin is a Spanish, like Southern Spanish Moor.
I always imagined him as Spanish. Yeah. Like that was always in my head. I don't know why.
Like Salazar isn't a white person.
Right.
And I also have a theory that he just left the basilisk like as a baby in there, like as a protection thing, because he knew people were getting burned at the stakes for being witches and wizards. So he probably was like, I'll just leave this here. So if anybody tries to come up
Just
here
in
on some
case.
scary shit, just saying. But then he wasn't able to come back, and like, you know, the baby basilisk grew and woke up and was like, "Where is Dad?" And then I had to be.
I couldn't be friends with that basilisk, or should have been friends with that basilisk. Anyway,
Yeah.
I have a lot of feelings.
What about you, Bayana? Do you have any challenges you had to overcome carving out a space in fandom?
I mean, yes and no. Like, I don't know. I just feel like it was I guess, okay. So I feel like at this point, I just don't care about like the larger fandom and like whatever. Like I just I feel like the space has been carved, like we've done that, and I think mainly the challenges have been like, you know, like we have this whole Black Wizard History Month thing happening all month. So mainly the thing has been like pulling that together, but not so much in like trying to make it. I don't know. I feel like the people who find it and who are like excited about it and interact with it are the people who I'm trying to reach. I think there have been a couple of times when I've like been doing things at conventions and I've kind of looked into the audience and been like, oh wait, this is not even like the audience. You know what I mean? Like this isn't even like who I'm really trying to like talk to, and like, you know, if they listen to our podcast, great. It's just not like our, you know, we're Black girls create, so that's like at the heart of everything that we do. And so I think mainly challenges have been like money, like promotion, having time. I work from home and like part-time right now, so it makes things like, that's kind of the reason why things have been able to like pop off, because, you know, people got jobs, people got to like eat. Yeah. And so that has been like I think those kind of factors have been the challenges. But yeah.
I mean, that's real. Having a full-time, trying to have like a side project at all when you have a full-time, even part-time job, it's just like,
it's a lot. Like I'm trying to, like I had like went back maybe yesterday in my calendar because I was looking for something, and then it like all of a sudden all these things popped up from my old job, and I was like, oh, I was doing I was like, how the hell was I doing all of these things? Like what? So yeah, like having to like have work full time and then also be thinking about like other it's another job. Like I am like, usually when people ask like, oh, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm doing like 2-3 different things. Like it's not just like yeah, even just doing the podcast is a job.
Yeah, so. I'm a full-time teacher, so there's been days where like I don't get home till 7 or 8 or 9, and I've been at the school since like 6:30 in the morning, and like there have definitely been weeks where like getting that episode out was barely made it, you know, and like also getting used to the idea that like this thing is mine, and if I want to take a break from it for a week, I can do that. But I think because I've made it a commitment to like I have to do something every single week, that if I have that one week where I don't put anything out, I'm like, oh my god, I'm so bad at this, I can't do it. You know, like, and so like also trying to recognize that like what I'm doing at the end of the day is something that's mine, and like if I don't want to do it that week, I don't have to. But like I have people out there, it almost feels like are like depending on it for whatever their reasons are, and so like it's been to
we might have lost her. She froze.
Oh no.
Well, yeah, I know.
I thought I'm like,
no, I think she froze. Oh, she might be trying to come back. Okay, well, we'll circle back. Yeah. I just kind of wanted to end on if you guys had any advice for fans of color, specifically Black fans, wanting to make their own space and content in the fandom. Not necessarily a podcast, but also podcast advice is fine.
Yeah, I mean, I would say just like do it. Like, because I think that like ultimately you have to do it for yourself. Like you can't like, I think that that's kind of like why Black girls create. And oh, here she is. Hold up. She's back.
Oh, we're back.
Yeah, you're back.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's like ultimately why Black girls create and Wizard Team has like been successful, is because we've like been doing it because we've liked to, and because we're, it's for ourselves, and then like folks are coming to it and they like it, and that's great. So I think that really just put out the things that you want to see, and put out the things that like you want to do, things you want to get better at, like I think as long as you're like thinking about, and there is like the promotion that comes with it, and so like at some point you do have to like market yourself in some ways, but also like at the heart of it, you have to be doing it because you enjoy it.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if you heard that, Gia, but I was just asking for, final advice for specifically Black people, but anybody in the fandom who wants to create content and carve out their own space in fandom, not necessarily podcasts, but also podcasts.
Yeah. I would say just go for it. Like there's going to be, there's like 7 billion people on the planet. There's going to be somebody, at least one person who like wants to see what you do, whether it's like art or fan fiction or a podcast or whatever. Like there's going to be at least one person who's like, I like this, I'm with it. And like for me, the weeks where I feel like I don't have the energy for it, like the kids I teach are reading Harry Potter still. Mm-hmm. And that's been like one of the coolest things to me, is like seeing them being like the age that I was and like reading it and loving it. And like, they know, my students that I teach know that like Harry Potter is a personality trait for me. So like any gifts they give me, like I got a Harry Potter blanket, like a cable blanket from one of my students. And for Teachers Appreciation Week, they had to write us cards, and at least 3 of my cards had like a snake drawn on it, and like one kid made like a Slytherin joke, and it was like the S symbol from Slytherin, and it said "You're super" on it, and it was so cute. And so like that's been one of the biggest draws, is like those kids are obviously not going to be listening to my podcast, hopefully for another 5 to 10 years, but like they are engaged with it and they love it. So like that's like my draw, is like you find inspiration to do it, even if you don't know like what the end result is going to be, because somebody is going to resonate with somebody.
Mm-hmm. Great answer.
Yeah, I want to go off that point where I feel like just because mainstream TV and movies and book publishing are all run by white people, I feel like it's created this like artificial scarcity of like, there can only be like one Black person doing a thing that's like, and it's like, no, like I want to listen to like 20 more Harry Potter podcasts by other Black people. Like I want to, because it's like we're individuals. I want to hear, a bunch of other people's perspectives, and
absolutely.
So yeah, part of it is like you kind of got to do it, and I don't think that being like, there's already like 30 Harry Potter podcasts should be a deterrent from that, So, but I will say it is a time, but it is a time commitment, but
yeah,
you don't have to buy it. You can buy like a $50 mic on Amazon and like $20 in web hosting, and like. You don't need much.
Mic is $20 right here that I'm using. So y'all are probably like, it sounds like it, but hey, if it works,
whatever works.
I don't know. I think podcast is a medium is like it's really great. Like even like YouTube, you need like a bunch more expensive stuff to get into it. So
I feel that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's pretty much all we have for today. But real quick, let's go around the room and tell us what you got coming up and where we can find you. We can start with Jessie. You know where to find you.
Yeah, I was going to say I can.
Go ahead, Jessie.
Oh, sorry, my internet like dropped. I'm like, am I still here? Profit, wherever podcasts are at. We're on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at The Gaily Prophet. We have merch and at prophet.com. We're also on Patreon because this is a lot of work to do a podcast, and we need support. You can also just find me individually on Twitter at Jessie_Detroit, or on Instagram at Live from Detroit. All one word. So
Love it. Jania?
So independently, I'm on Twitter and Instagram at @thelady_Artemis. I've resonated with that lately, but and then the podcast right now, we only have a Twitter account, and that is at House of Black Pod. And like Jessie said, podcasting is expensive. So if you want to help out, the Patreon is patreon.com/House of Black Pod. And we are available on Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, pretty much wherever you can listen to podcasts. We're on there.
And last but not you.
Yeah,
or least you.
Find everything on blackgirlscreate.org. We have one more week left of Black Wizard History Month, so content and one last live tweet and lots of things. And then after that, more things. So you can find, we're on Twitter at We Black and Nerds. I'm on Twitter at Yana_Hollows. And yeah, blackgirlscreate.org is where you can pretty much find everything and then just like branch out from there.
Firstly, we have a note from the chat. I'm meant to tell Nicole to stop texting and driving because she's in the chat and she's driving and she should not be.
Yeah,
so
yeah. Don't the internet and text whatever
Nicole.
you're doing, please.
Get home. We'll be
here.
I'm Delia Dumbledore at Twitter. That's mainly where you can find me, but also blackgirlscreate.org. I be writing sometimes. What I'm supposed to write is that's different. Don't ask me about what I'm meant to be writing right now. But yeah, thank you guys so much for joining us for this panel. It was super cool to talk to you guys. Go listen to their podcast. Go carve out a few hours, guys.
Thank you.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Cool. And we'll be back in like 10 minutes. people. Hi.
Hi.
People. I think we're waiting on one more person. But hi.
Hi.
It's like
Upside down.
most people in here. Okay. How's everyone doing? Good.
Great.
It's a yeah. Okay.
I only woke up about like an hour ago.
Ooh.
Oh my.
I
That's
was
great though.
I was out till almost midnight, waiting for Elizabeth Warren in Seattle.
Ooh, how was that?
See, I yeah.
It was awesome, and meeting her was awesome, and she complimented my headband. So it was really cool. I've been volunteering for the campaign, and it was really cool to be around so many like-minded people. It just made me more inspired to continue working.
That's awesome.
Trying to fix the angle on the tab. Better? So who are we waiting on?
I think we're waiting on Norma.
Also, I'm sorry about the lighting, y'all. Like, I look super washed out. This is actually the best lit room in my house at the moment.
I love your background.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's all good.
It looks so much more professional than mine. You can see the pillow in the background and see how lazy I am.
Yeah, for a long time, my light had gone out, and so I had these I have these ones on the wall that were strung up, and it was so dim and awful. So it's like you just gotta do what you gotta do.
You just gotta make it work.
Yeah. Let me see. Let me try to hit up.
I'm just reading through the old comments because I missed the earlier part of the stream. I'm like, who wants to go on record as a Percy Oliver shipper? Where did that come from?
That's not uncommon.
No, Percy Oliver,
it's a thing.
They're both when you think about it, they were both in they're in the same year, and they were
in
both
the same house.
They're in the same house, which
and
means they were
an
roommates.
Opposites attract sort of romance.
Exactly.
And also, could you just imagine being roommates with Percy and Oliver?
I would just I would just expel myself. I'll just be like, I can't do this.
Exactly. So then the entire 7th year is probably just like, if we get them together, they can annoy each other and not the rest of us.
I think you've just converted me. I know what I'm doing after this.
It was neither of us who came up with this. I just know that it's a thing.
I just see it. You know?
Yeah, the vision is plain,
I've never seen that ship. Never. I'm like, okay, I can see it.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's give it 3 more minutes. I just hit up Norma and yeah.
Did you DM her?
I just did.
Do you want me to text her?
Sure.
This is a cool streaming platform.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's super helpful. We didn't. Oh, here's Norma. We had like, hey,
Hi.
Hello.
we had like because YouTube used to like let you do it like
Yeah.
directly, and then it
Hangouts
stopped.
on air.
Yeah, and then it stopped doing that, and freaked out for a couple weeks, and then found this.
So is this also free?
Yeah. There's like some like you can pay for it. Like they have more functionality if you pay for it, but yeah.
It's really professional for a free platform.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And is the share screen option, is that free too, or? Ooh, that's good to know.
I believe so. Yeah.
Ideas are forming.
The plotting. The different kind of plotting that we'll be talking about.
We're about to talk about exactly.
The only plot I have is like, I can watch Dragon Prince with my cousin at the same time.
Ooh,
Oh.
I didn't even think of that.
For letting you do that, where you just put in the link and it'll play it for both of you at the same time, and you can watch something together.
There's a program that does that?
Yeah, I'll have to figure it out, and then I'll message it to you later.
Oh, thank you. Yes.
Live.
All right, tight. Let's start then. So hi everyone in the stream. We welcome to our second panel of the second day of the Kumba Kickback. We are today talking about writing, critique, and how to overcome your self-doubt when writing. So I'm super excited that we have all of these people here to talk about this. I'm Bayana. I am co-founder and editor-in-chief of Black Girls Create and a Ravenclaw. And yeah, so I want everybody to go around. I'm gonna just go from like the top. So Lily, and say your name, what you do, and your Hogwarts house.
All right, I'm Lily Meade. I am a young adult writer, not published yet, and occasional YouTuber. I need to be more active, and I am a diehard Ravenclaw.
Out here, Connie.
I'm Connie. I'm a writer of all sorts of things, I guess, but mostly I write at a children's magazine and for Black Girls Create, where I'm managing editor, and all over the internet about like nerdy things and news, like, movies and stuff. Very Hufflepuff over here.
That's true. Norma.
Oh, okay, it's going. I wasn't sure.
Yeah, I was like,
how's the Brady Bunch thing gonna happen? All right, everybody. My name is Norma Perez-Hernandez. I'm an assistant editor at Kensington Publishing Corp. And I am a Ravenclaw. I didn't wear my sweater today, but Connie, I'm wearing my doctor.
13.
My 13.
And she too.
Yeah, so we love her. Love that for her.
Love this cosplay.
The cosplay,
Great.
yeah.
Rosie.
So my name is Roseanne Brown. I usually go by Rosie, and I am a middle grade and YA author. My debut novel, A Song of Wraiths and Ruin. It'll be out June 2nd.
Do you mind just putting that a little closer?
Yes, please put the cover closer because it's so good. The cover is so good.
I don't know where my camera is actually.
No, you're good.
That's great.
Yes, got it.
The cover
will be out June 2nd with HarperCollins, Bowser and Bray. And I am a diehard Hufflepuff. So Connie, I got you. Like just Hufflepuff.
Yes.
Like every single test, always Hufflepuff.
Yes.
Can you guys hear me okay?
A little bit.
Low. You're a bit low.
Okay, hold on. Make sure this. Can you hear me?
Yep. It's a little bit low, but yeah.
Okay. I'll introduce myself and then I'll mess with it. I'm Kalynn Bayron. I am the author of Cinderella is Dead. My pronouns are she and her, by the way. And my Hogwarts house is, I am a proud Gryffindor. And I'm a full-time writer.
Awesome.
Just Kalynn, before we move on, Stacy in the chat needed you to know that Cinderella is dead is everything. So
Yeah, the reason
I was just complimenting you on that the other day.
I know I was
Yeah, on the
Face
cover.
to cover.
It is
I was
incredible.
so gross. I was so gross because I was like, oh my God, I love. So I was like talking about like I did a little mini thread of like UK and American editions because like that's what your cover started. I was like, holy crap, two great illustrations that are completely different.
Love it. Okay, awesome. So, first question: what made you want to write? Or I know Norma edits, but I'm sure you like write things too. So what made you want to like go into writing?
Are we going in the same direction?
You can. Whoever wants to start is fine.
I think it was the only subject I was good at in school. And it was just the only thing, it was the subject that got the most compliments and praise from teachers and my family and stuff. So I think that's really what it is. And then I knew a lot of the things I didn't want to be. I was like, a doctor? No. A lawyer? No, definitely not. Like I just kept eliminating other things and just sort of fell into being a professional writer like a few years ago, where it was like, oh, I don't know what kind of writing I want to do. And so I've done a lot of it and still trying to find that one thing, which I guess I don't have to do, but because there's so many different kinds of writing that I'm still like figuring out which kind is like my favorite or the easiest, because it's like, oh, writing's really hard still. So I can't do anything else, but I also feel like I have so much more to do with this. And so, but it's the only thing I've ever really been good at. Mediocre at, good at, whatever. I'll be confident today.
Good at.
Yes.
Yeah, the same thing with me. I didn't realize that I was good at writing until other people told me I was. I started doing fan fiction after I broke my leg because I couldn't really be active outside anymore. And I got a lot of good feedback on that. And then I looked at old report cards, and I had always gotten notes from teachers to work on to continue working on my writing because it was something that I was pretty good at. And so I just went all in, and it's worked pretty well so far. But like you said, the more you know about it, like the more you want to improve because it's so hard. I think a great writer is always learning and always striving to better their craft.
And I guess for me, like piggybacking off all of that, it was the only way I ever felt I could really express myself, because like I'm a very, very shy person. And so like things would just happen. I just internalize everything, just like shut it all in, but only through like thinly veiled, like self-inserts of everybody in my life, I'd get it all out through there. And like it became the only space where like during the day I would just be like complete silence, not talking to anybody. And then like at night I'm scribbling my notebook and just the words just kept on coming. And it just got to a point where it wasn't even really intentional. But I started looking back. I'm like, whoa, there's been a lot of improvements simply because I haven't been doing anything else.
Yes.
So that's kind of where that began for me.
I've always wanted to write. I've always wanted to be a storyteller. A long time ago, I thought I was going to be like some kind of poet or something, but I did a lot of poetry. I wrote a lot of songs, and it's just something I've always wanted to do. And then more recently, just wanting to see more representation in across all age categories, but especially in YA fantasy. I wanted to see more of us, and that's the main reason that I started writing, and that I want to continue to tell stories.
So when I was around 7 years old, I'm sure a lot of us are of the same generation, a millennial, gross. Harriet the Spy was a movie. And so like immediately I was inspired by Harriet the Spy. I got a composition notebook and I wrote private on it but instead of like spying on people, I was just writing like poetry. Like, so that's like where I started writing. And it was one of those things where like you, Lily, people would be like, read it and we're like, oh, it's good. And I was like, oh, cool. So then I started like doing poetry at our school's like talent show. Like every year I do like a poem for the Christmas show and a poem for that. And they were like garbage. Like this isn't like, you know, a deaf poetry jam or anything, or like Naruto or whatever. It was just like a kid. But I, you know, my local library had a lot of, that was like my home away from home, had like poetry workshops, like empty classes and et cetera, et cetera. And then like I started taking creative writing classes in college, and that was like a whole like record scratch. It like kind of just killed it. Like all, I'm not gonna lie, like college killed it, man. Like it sucked. And then while that was happening, so like I did those 2 minimum, like the most that you could take to fulfill an English major in lit. I like took those 2 classes. I was like, oh, I'm never doing this again. And I started at the same time I was doing that, I was in the publishing certificate program at my school. And so that kind of led me into this like track where I am now, where I'm an editor at a publishing house. And the reason why I kept doing that for like the past almost decade, I think, is I got that passion for diversity. It just didn't occur to me that A, it was something that could happen in my lifetime, and B, it was something that like I could actually be a part of. So like the flip side of being a publisher, a representative of a publisher house, like I get it, publishing's the devil, like I understand, like that's okay, like it's fine, but so the flip side of being an awful, evil, racist, misogynist gatekeeper is I could do the opposite of that. And I think I'm trying to, knock on wood, you know, be a part of whatever I'm acquiring for my list, or trying to just make the best books holistically. Because as we know, this is not really an issue of like being small-minded. It's also an issue of craft. You know, when people do things wrong, and I'm about good craft and good work. So that's what I'm trying to do. And I get to assist. My editor is Black too. Her name is Jessie, and she's like the best person to look up to. If you Google her, ESISOGAH, there's like a really cool article about in BuzzFeed about like her work for diversity and romance. And so like getting to work on the authors on her list too, and like trying to create something that hopefully will last a long time is pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I know, like, you know, writing is one thing, but then sharing that with other people is another. So when did you feel comfortable, or even if you weren't feeling comfortable necessarily, but when did you decide that like, okay, now is when I want to start trying to share my work with other people?
So I sort of did it in the reverse. Like I said, I started with fan fiction. So it was straight from me to the audience. And then when I decided to get serious about having an actual career in writing, I stepped back from tying myself publicly to fan fiction. I mean, I still write fan fiction. But my original work, I had to keep closer to the chest. And that's actually made it so much harder because I thrive on feedback and encouragement. And you just don't get that except for a select few when you're writing for traditional publishing.
So I think that the goal has always been to share my work. There's that piece by Radine Sims Bishop, Mirrors, Windows, and Sliding Glass Doors. I knew from the jump that I wanted to try to create those kinds of experiences for my readers, and so the goal has always been to share my work. So that was kind of a starting point for me. But you know, getting it out there and realizing that, you know, you have to kind of go through this critique process and editing and all of that. That was a learning process. It's still a learning process for me. But the goal has always been to create something that is worthy of being shared, and that creates a sense of community with the people that I write for. So that's kind of the starting point for me.
And I guess I was similar to Lily, where I started in a fanfic background at first. And so you get that immediate gratification, like if something's working or it's not working, you know, like right away. And so that kind of, but the difference was it didn't have my real name tied to it. So like, no, it was never like, it never felt personal to me. So it was getting feedback, but it was always a step above, like step apart. And so when it started becoming like, this is tied to me, has my name to it, was in college, my college writing workshops. And that was actually more of a literary background, kind of short story, like, and just imagine a bunch of like dudes in turtlenecks being like, nobody since Jack Kerouac has ever written a book worth reading. Like,
Rosie,
and then, like,
oh my
I just roll up, like, I like writing fantasies about like little kids with magic, and then like it went about as well as how you think it would go. So but it was actually that sitting there in those classes, and like the first couple of years I was really trying hard to like kind of fit in and be like, okay, let me write like the literary fiction, like this is what they want, this is what I need to do, like to be accepted in this space. And it just made me miserable. I didn't like what I was writing. I didn't like these people. I don't know what I was writing to like impress them. And so I got to a point where it's like I was looking down at this thing that I always loved, and I'm like, this doesn't feel true to me. It doesn't feel true to what I care about. So it became kind of like this come to Jesus moment. Like, if you really want to do this, like you have to truly do this. And so I started like submitting like more YA inspired, fantasy inspired, genre inspired pieces to like my official college workshop. And a lot of the Jack Kerouac dudes didn't get it, which was fine, but a surprising number of them did get it. They're like, yes, finally something that's not about like college professors cheating on their wives. Yes. So for me, it was very much kind of like it became a like, what kind of creator do I want to be? How do I want my work to reflect me? That's how I kind of got over that. Like, that's what made me decide I need to share this and not that.
Yeah, I viscerally felt that, Rosie, because oh man, I took 2 creative writing classes in college, and I mean in high school it was just because you had to take a class or whatever. So like obviously I loved creative writing and did fine in it, but the type of writing that like I like, which is fantasy and sci-fi and all that kind of stuff, those creative writing classes really just kill you when you're a Black girl who doesn't like that. The stuff that they're writing about, it's just like all these like cigarette smoking white people who are like out drinking alcohol, and they're just like so sad about life or whatever. And I was writing stuff like, I forget what it was, and the teacher was nice. I think this was the second one that I took, and I was just like interested in fairy tales a lot at the time. And so the teacher introduced me to, and oh man, I can't remember right now because I haven't been thinking about it in a long time, but a famous writer who like did a lot of fairy tale adaptations and writing them in like cool adult darker ways and stuff. And so I like wrote a reimagining of like Rumpelstiltskin or whatever. And thinking back on it, it still wasn't where I was still writing that kind of stuff and getting like weird looks in the class. Like I once wrote like a Carmen Sandiego origin story, like why she like turned to the dark side or whatever. And like, you know, kids, the other students in the class are just like, okay. And I was doing that stuff, but it was sort of before I was like actually writing myself into these stories. So a lot of it was still like white characters or like vaguely like mixed race in a way that I am not. Like, why am I doing this? Like, why is she green hair? That's not me at all. So I was still not like putting my actual self and who I wanted to see in these stories, because I hadn't gotten to that point of like knowing that yet. But yeah, I think just like creative writing classes and after college and, you know, not getting employed right away to anywhere and like working part-time and stuff and trying to figure out what I want to do and what kind of writing I wanted to do. I just like wrote on the internet just like about TV shows and like essays or whatever. And that's was interesting because in the similar way of fan fiction, you kind of just like put it out there and then people tell you cool or not cool or whatever. So when I got like a professional writing job and they like edited it to pieces, I was just like, okay, maybe this is not for me. But that's just because now you're suddenly employed and this is what they do. You just kind of like get used to people tearing apart your work. And there's a level of, I mean, for when it's journalism stuff, because I worked at a newspaper and now work in a magazine, when it's journalism stuff, sometimes I'm not always like 100% passionate about what it is that I'm doing. So I'm able to like distance myself from the editing process. But sometimes I am just like, okay, maybe I'm not as good as I thought I was, but that's just, I'm still learning and becoming aware that this is part of the process. And that doesn't mean I'm bad at it. It just means I need to fit the voice of wherever I'm writing for or whatever. So, and the understanding that like in college, I didn't need to do that. And I was, and then now I sort of do need to do that. And I'm not, just that weird dichotomy. I think I answered the question.
You're good.
Yeah.
I'm not, because I'm an editor. No, I'm kidding. I think I'm in this weird like half space because when I was so young, I was so quickly in its own way validated by like my parents, the adults, the teachers around me. I got to like already at a young age perform what I wrote, and it was just one of those things that, like, oh, I'm a writer and whatever, whether I was good or not, unclear, but like it was something like, I guess similar to what a lot of more of like privileged people get all the time, where they just do something and then suddenly, I think, for example, there's like this like piece about like Gwyneth Paltrow and Goop in like the Times, and there's like a thing where they're in the home and they hear like her, like Chris Martin's kids, I think those are her kids with Gwyneth, yeah, like Apple or something, is like just playing guitar beautifully in the other room or whatever, and it's like, well, of course she can, A, because like the DNA, and B, because like she probably picked up the guitar once. They're like, oh my God, that's beautiful. And then they kept doing it. And now she's like money and lessons. And it's like, I think like, because I was able, like, they're like, oh, you're a writer. And I'm like, cool. And like, I had a teacher every so often. It like happened. So like, I did that. Then I did fan fiction, and that was amazing. And you just do it. And you do it, and you write for your friends and you share your stories. And it just, there wasn't ever like a thought to it until like I hit, like, I think once like I hit college and I had like teachers that didn't quite get me and I didn't quite get them. And I didn't want to push any farther to find that community. Mm-hmm. And now like looking back and seeing like, on the other side of the desk, all my other like friends and colleagues, like on the writing side, like making their community teams, their beta readers, their teachers, like all that stuff. I'm like, oh, that's how you do it. So now I need to like work backward and like do that stuff again. Because now it's kind of like, now that I see amazing authors, like I've read just about, or want to read just like all of you here. And so like knowing that, hi Connie, I stand, you're writing already. So like knowing that I'm in around people that I already know are writers, then it's like, oh no, if I dare show my writing, it's like, oh yeah, that editor who can't read, which is like another awful insecurity thing. That's gross. So yeah.
So speaking of those insecurities, what have been kind of your biggest fears in sharing your work with other people?
All right, I'll start this. I can leave. I think it's because I think like I don't want to be like it's gonna be bad, and then it's like because I work in it. It's like really that lady who like I would trust her to edit my book and she can't write. Okay, right? Because I don't pretend to be Toni Morrison, right? So but then on the flip side, like I think the other thing too is the representation issue. I feel like now as we're just getting more and more into this time, which is why American Dirt's just so funny to me. It's just so funny. Spoiler alert, I'm Latinx. It's just funny because I would be terrified just to literally write a story about a fat Puerto Rican Cuban girl growing up in the Bronx in the mid-aughts and whatever. Like that's literally my childhood, and I'm terrified of fucking it up or having people be like, that wasn't mine, or this is awful, or this was harmful about anything. And, now like, that I think that's the biggest thing, just like write without fear to like then, go back and look at it later.
Yeah, to piggyback off of that, you have this insecurity of like what if I'm a better editor than I am a writer. I have felt like I've had some experiences with getting professionally edited, and so much of my writing education was self-taught. I didn't do any creative writing classes. Right now, I'm going through an editing certificate program at the University of Washington, but that's solely because of a generous family friend who is paying my tuition. That wouldn't have been possible for me. And part of the reason I feel so passionate and validated by this experience is because I've had some really traumatic experiences where I was trying to be respectful of myself, respectful of who I was working with, and respectful of my story. But I didn't know enough about publishing and what was and wasn't okay and what I should expect. And going through this program, like I'm becoming a better writer and I'm becoming a solid editor, but I'm also learning about how you should treat others and how you should be expect to be treated. And as a Black woman, I think that's insanely important. And every time I go to class, I think about ways that I can take this knowledge that cost a pretty penny for me to learn, and figure out how to share it with people who don't have that money. Because I would have been so grateful to know these things, to know what to expect, back when I was just a self-taught person who was Googling my way to talent.
Oh yeah, definitely the Googling your way and feeling like, oh, maybe the editing part is better, and that it's more worth it to work on that side of things and than to be doing it yourself. And at this point, I'm sort of trying to do both, but I definitely have that similar feeling and insecurity of like, oh well,
You froze on us,
Connie. No.
Oh, there she is. Yeah.
Okay. Don't know what happened there. It's been doing that. So yeah, what was the question?
insecurities.
Yeah.
Yeah,
sharing,
just
yeah.
being okay. Yeah. But yeah, I think in the last 3 years since I've been like a professional writer, it's been slightly easier because I feel the ways in which I'm learning, even when I feel like they're traumatic experiences, because I wrote my first story for the Daily News when I worked there, and they put it in the paper, and literally I think none of the words were any of the ones that I wrote, except for like the fact that it was like nouns and verbs that you would put in the same story. So I was just like, oh, so I suck. Okay, great. And it's that thing where you just have to keep going because you're doing it. But that I guess ability to forge ahead has leaked into my other kinds of writing. So like when I write for other outlets and stuff like that, I am taking what I've learned and just trying to observe, because I haven't taken any journalism classes at all. So kind of like Lily is sort of like Googling my way into learning how to do this, buying books at Barnes and Noble, kind of learning how to do it. I mean, even in school, having taken creative writing classes, I didn't feel like I learned that much from them because it was such like a disconnect between who I was and what I wanted to write about and what they wanted to teach us about. So yeah, I think it's just the fact of doing it, because I think 3 or 4 years ago, I would say I was still super unwilling to share stuff, or I just wouldn't write it. Like, I think that's really what it is that if I wrote it, I think I'm pretty good at like putting it somewhere. But if it's the getting the writing part down where I get stuck in the insecurity part. So it's like, oh, I just didn't write it because I felt so insecure about not having to share it with someone. But like once I've written it, and maybe this is just with time, I've gotten to a place where it's like, okay, I'll show it to someone. And then, you know, like Bayana and our friend Delia will like, fix it, here we go. And I've all the TKs and all the blank spaces and all the missing plots and all the things that are in the wrong spot, or I repeated 3 times or whatever. But I think I've just learned that like having someone else to read your work is going to mostly be helpful. And that's a lesson that I've learned that I think has been helpful.
I guess for me, I'm kind of lucky that these days, the fear of whether or not my stuff like kind of like sucks, like it never really goes away. But one good thing about deadlines is that like when you have enough of them, whether or not your stuff sucks, like you just cannot care about that, because it's like, if I do not meet this deadline, it is over. Oh no. So like there's not even time to be scared of that. But I think where the biggest fear is for me these days is like whether or not my work is doing right by us and by like the people I want to talk about, and like knowing how bad harmful rep can be. Like, to talk about my experience specifically, like I was born in Ghana, and my family immigrated when I was about 4 years old. So I've spent the majority of my life here in America. And so we couldn't really afford to go back that often. So like I have maybe a year's worth of memories of my life actually in Ghana, and the rest of what I know has been gleaned through stories and media and like folk tales and all that. And so like my understanding of what it means to be Ghanaian is so much through other secondhand sources. So for something even like my novel, which is based off like African folklore, and so much of it's directly what I either learned, was told myself, or like what learned through research, like there's always that fear, like what if I'm getting it wrong? What if I'm not understanding it? Because like it's technically mine, like I'm a part of this group and I claim that like wholly, but like it's not 100% directly live. And like how will this depiction, like will it build off of stereotypes people already have about our group? What about the truths that I've seen or known that are actually like kind of like they're similar to what negative stereotypes people might have? How do I navigate that? And so I think that has been the biggest fear with the work. Like, is my work doing more harm than good? And if so, what can I do once those words are on the page and they're out and like I can't do anything to change it?
Yeah, so I think that my biggest fear is just unintentional harm. I write about the Black queer community, and I'm a part of that community. This community that I love and support. I don't want to do anything to hurt anybody, but we're not a monolith. There are so many experiences, and this story is not going to fit everyone, but I don't want to hurt anyone in the process. And so that's my biggest fear. I would say that a close second is craft. I don't want to have to go back and retcon anything. I don't want to have to go back and say, oh, well, this is what I meant, and I'm not.
I mean, if the major movie writers are doing it right now.
and
just make it a pinned tweet, that thread that you update every time. Let them know.
By the way, if it is force sensitive, I didn't put it in the movie, but just that, right?
There.
Just like I just need you to know, it's in there.
I bet you do it a lot more tactful than rolling.
Ooh, we going there? We going there?
I don't want to have to do that. I want you to know that this person is Black and this person is gay and this is what it is. I want it to be on the page, and I want it to be clear, and I want it to be upfront. I don't want it ever to be a surprise. It's not a plot twist. It's not none of that. So I think my biggest fear is just making sure that I have the skills to do that. I want to make sure I'm constantly improving my craft by just listening, learning, reading, just anything that I can do to improve, because I never want to have to go back and say, oh, well, this is what I really meant. As it's my job as a writer to make sure that I can tell this story and that it's clear and that it's concise. And so that's my second biggest fear, is I just don't want to have to do anything like that.
Love that. So in thinking about that, were there any ways that was there like a specific way that you approached sharing your work, knowing what these fears are? Are there ways that you tried to mitigate that, or were you just like, I'm going to just ignore it and just like rip the Band-Aid off? Or like, were there any kinds of like, I guess, thought processes towards like how you were going to share your work and how you were going to kind of approach it internally, I guess?
I think that just kind of understanding what I want to do and how I want to do it. It's, and it's always scary, putting things out there, because you might, no matter how hard you try, you might say something or explain something in a way that is hurtful to someone. But I think there's a difference between this book is harmful and this book hurt me, or this is, I don't like this book, but it's not, there's another book that is out there at the moment where it's harmful, and so that I don't want to do. But I have to understand that there's going to be people who don't like it, who might not agree, but it should never be hurtful. It should never cause that kind of harm. And so I think that in sharing my work, that I, as long as I keep that in the back of my head, as long as I think about that as I'm going through the process of writing and editing and the whole kind of, publishing process, that as long as I keep that in the back of my head, that I think I'll be okay. But it's always there. It doesn't really go away.
I think the biggest thing for me was learning that I needed to separate my internal validation from the validation I get from somebody reviewing my work, and I need to be unapologetic about the things that are a deal breaker for me. Like, because editing is great. I love the process of editing, and to piggyback off something Rosie said, I love deadlines imposed by other people, because I'm much more afraid of disappointing someone else than I am of letting myself down. But in wanting to make someone proud of me, I also have to recognize that there are certain things about my like lived experience that I have the power of veto on over someone, even if they are perhaps more educated than me. And something I'm learning in my program is an editor's job is to elevate an author's story.
Mm-hmm.
It's not to make it their version of their own. Like even when we're editing single words, our teacher advises us to change the individual letters instead of deleting the whole word and writing it out, because you want to show the author that you are not rewriting them, you are just helping them. And I think learning as a writer which things I'm going to stand up for and which things I am happy to be corrected on and educated on has been a big improvement for me.
I think for me, it was definitely a rip the Band-Aid off kind of thing, because like I could let fear stop me for years. In the past, I had let fear stop me for so long, and it had to get to a point where it's like I really just kind of had to close my eyes to the leap and just sort of start doing it, because if I tried to like really think about it, I would talk myself out of it. And it's still kind of like to this day, like I'm still sending something out, I'll do like, oh, but did I like do this, or did I fix that, or like is this like character's arc like tight enough? But I'm like, I legit like sometimes I'll even like, you guys know Into Spider-Verse, right? And like, you know, like the leap of faith scene, like where Miles just jumps, I will legit play that scene, and like the moment he jumps, it's the silliest thing, but like the moment he jumps, I'm like send, and I'm like, it's gone. It's done. So it's very much because like my mind, like the second I think about it too long, I just start to overthink. I'm like, nope, take it back. So I just have to be like,
oh, so we're the same, Rosie. Okay, great.
Yeah, we're the same. That's what I'm getting from this. So.
Yes, vibe is just real strong right now, and I think also just publish it or like give it to whoever. I think sometimes it's a deadline thing, but sometimes, usually maybe it's a deadline thing, but sometimes it's just like, I'm not going to send it to you if I don't just do it right now while I'm thinking about it, because otherwise I'm just going to be like, nope, I'm good. But also it's that thing that I said earlier of like, I worked on it, so someone could look at it, I guess, but I'm not like confident about it. It's just like, I like worked on some freelance project that I'm working on, and it's like way overdue, and I've been waiting for like answers that I need from someone else. But I've also been procrastinating on it. And then every time I work on it, I'm just like, okay, I guess. And then I didn't really have like a hard, fast deadline because I'm waiting for something else. But I know that they're like waiting on my revisions and stuff. And so I just was just like, okay, I'm gonna work on it actually during our quick quills writing sprint that we done on Friday. And I just like worked on it and was just like, emailed the person. I was like, I don't have everything that I need, but I did work on it. I think some places are better, some places need to be worked on. But I knew that I wasn't going to work on it the rest of the weekend or want to work on it anyway. So I just was like, let me just send this and they can tell me what I still need to fix. And then I can, if I've gotten the other things back that I need, I can add that in. But I think a lot of it's a disappointment thing too, of like, I want them to know that I am trying to work on it, and I've been like slacking on it a lot, but I have been trying to work on it. Just like a lot of other stuff keeps getting in the way, but like, I just don't want them to be mad at me. So I send it. And also the rip the Band-Aid thing, if it's not someone that I'm already like trying not to disappoint.
I find that, just in general with like my career in editorial, is that imposter syndrome just hits you every day, every single day. And so like a few things recently, just in the past few months or a year or so, that have given me stress. One is like our company, like we distribute our own books, but we also have a much larger company that distributes our books. And that one, which might be familiar to a lot of you, is Penguin Random House. And Penguin Random House has this huge building by Columbus Circle. It's like the building is the office because they got it like that. And I went in for their sales conference to represent an author that I've just started recently working with like 2 or 3 months ago, because I just inherited her. And I was like, and I had to present her in front of all the editorial, my boss's boss, editor-in-chief, director of sales, director of publicity and communications, the publisher, and all the reps of Penguin Random House's publisher services. As you can guess, all but 2 people, it was very, very white. And I was terrified, right? And I was like, and they got us some Snackeries cookies, and I was eating the cookies. It was mad dry, and I was like, oh my God. And it was my turn to speak because I only had the one title, right? And then it was fine, and I did fine, and like it was great, and like I did what I had to do, and I pulled out because you don't want to speak too. Because like I'd asked my boss about it. I was like, oh, how's it gonna be? She's like, oh, you don't speak too much. But then we got there, and it was like a real presentation. Like each editor was speaking for at least like 3 minutes. I was like, sure. I started like writing notes and stuff, like how to prepare, and then it was fine. And so there's a bunch of stuff like that. I did like my first book festival book panel last year presenting. I have to like my first time I send an edit letter or a manuscript, the first time working with an author and their agent, I'm like, oh my God, I hope they like my edits. Oh my God, I hope they like my edits. Or like even worse. So like y'all think it's like a problem. Oh my God, what happens when I get my revisions back? What happens if your writer like does everything you asked them to do and you don't have much to change? Because again, I'm not trying to rewrite anyone's book. I'm not trying to do no harm. And if anyone thinks I'm going to rewrite their book, they're going to be in for a surprise, because if they give me shit, they're just going to get shit with like walnuts on top. That's all I'm going to give them. That's what I'm going to do. So if they do like a fine book and I send it, I'm terrified they're gonna be like, oh, this bitch didn't do anything, like she doesn't know what she's talking about, etc. And I'm like terrified. And they're like, and like one writer, and I encourage anyone who doesn't to keep a smile file of like any good thing you get about your work, so you like don't forget. Because like one author, when I said I wasn't gonna be working for that boss anymore, she went back to me. She's like, you reminded me of my old editor at Berkeley. She's not like publishing anymore, but like that's how good. I was like, ah! Like a real editor at Berkeley. Ah! It was just great. So I think that it's in the doing and to leap, because you'll get feedback soon enough whether what you were doing was like, you'll get it sooner if it was bad. So it's not too bad to just do it and then see what happens.
Yeah. So going off of that, how do you like personally deal with critique once you get it?
You do what that woman did, and you find out where they live, and you drive across and you knock on her door, and you said, why did you say that about me? Just to be clear, that was a joke. Just at home.
Well, I mean, if you're me, what you immediately do is one day you're just walking out of the shower thinking about your editor, and then like you just get so overwhelmed you're completely naked, you just sit down on the floor crying. This actually happened to me during edits for like this book. This straight up is a real true story. And I was upside down, by the way. And like all this to say, like I am an extremely emotional person, and like there's always that moment because like nobody truly like, I love this job, but no one likes getting critique. Like even knowing the story needed work, even knowing that there was still some issues in the draft, still seeing the like this wasn't hitting, this doesn't make sense. Like it kind of cuts you deep because like at the time it's like it was the best you could have done at that time. And so even knowing that, there's always just that moment like, oh God, I've let her down, I've let my agent down, they're gonna ask for the money back. Like just, in that moment with my 3 parties. But just like after, so for me, I always let the emotions come first because like I tried to be like, okay, let's just get to work. And whenever it just imploded every time. So I had to be like, get the emotional breakdown happen. And then usually for me, the next step is then I usually send my edit letter to my oftentimes far more rational friends. I'm just like, okay, this is what I think she's saying. What do you think she's saying? And 9 times out of 10, they're thinking like, oh man, she thinks it's great. You just got to change like X, Y, Z. I'm like, that makes sense. And so it helps to get that outside view and like that, like, and especially because if it turns out like there's something me and my friend we both are seeing one of her points in a different way. We're like, wait, then I know I have to go to my editor like, this actually isn't clear. It's not just me. Like this isn't that clear. And so then there's that kind of negotiating stage with the critique. Like I'm going back through like, is this applicable? Is it not? Like how much is my emotions versus how much is actually about the text? And then that's when I kind of get to the third stage, which is like, that's when kind of like the game hat comes back on. And like, once the emotions have been dealt with and like, they've kind of moved through me and like, I've faced them and I haven't let them control me, but I've let them like say their piece and then move on. Then it's kind of like, okay, it's back to the work. How do I make this work? How do I make this better? Or how do I prove to my editor, like this scene is working and it was working like for XYZ reason. Like, and just kind of like going back to the text and like facing the text. So I guess for me, the secret to dealing with critique is like being a huge emotional baby so that you can get to like the stone cold professional bitch you need to be. So like embracing the duality, like, you know that meme like Tyra Banks where she's like, ho, but make it fashion. Yeah. You gotta do that, like cry, but then get to work.
I love the Hufflepuff method to revisions.
Yes.
Yeah. This Hufflepuff method is avoidance at first. Like, and sometimes that's not possible because like I literally write as my day job, so it's like, well, I sent you this thing, and then you sent it back. Oh, immediately. Okay, great, because I work for a weekly magazine, so sometimes it's a little bit like right away. But yeah, I mean, even fun stuff like I sent Bayana a thing that was incoming, and I know that it needs work, and it had 75 holes on every page of things that needed to be filled in and things that I know are working, but I still haven't looked at what she's written me back. I still haven't opened the document. I'm
that's
just gonna
funny because
wait.
most of it is like, oh my god, it's so good. So that's funny.
Like I saw some of the like Google Doc, comments and stuff, but just avoiding the document as a whole because I can. And I think that is the thing, because I also need that distance of being able to, because I do think that I'm a good self-editor, because I mean, first of all, I'm just like, Connie, what are you doing? This is all trash. But I also feel like I can give myself distance, and it was editing myself that I was like, oh, maybe I could edit other people's work and help make it better. And so, because I feel like I have good distance from myself and my writing later, but it's just like, it takes a minute. And so I think it's avoidance. And then I can sort of look at it with fresh eyes, like with more distance from having just written it, as opposed to, and knowing that it sucks and then being like, okay, no, it sucks, but it could get better with, XYZ work that either I've seen or whoever looked at it has seen.
Anyone else? No? Cool.
I do just want to say that, like, critique, for me, like, understanding what is valid critique and what isn't is a huge piece of it, because, I trust my editor. I trust my agent. I have a few people that are like friends, kind of like beta readers, but not like officially, that I trust to tell me like, this ain't it, or or this is good, or whatever. But I've been in some critique groups, and I think you really just have to be careful about who is giving you the critique and what, because then you got to worry about people who are who might have other motives, not really worried about, who you are as a writer and your work and improving your work. They have other issues. So just kind of understanding what's valid critique is really helpful for me, because I understand that if it's coming from my editor or just or from people I trust, that it's because they want it to be better and they want me to improve as a writer. And if we both have that same goal, and so it works.
Yeah. Awesome. I just love like everybody's good segues to my next question. So what advice would you have for people who are still trying to write and or share their work?
Open up that Wattpad account and just go. No, I'm kidding. But am I? I'm not.
I mean, unless
and I think it comes in the doing. And I say that with someone who Connie knows is I have a working project that only has like less than 200 words, but it really is in doing, right? I'm reading now all the time about the people who write their stories, and they're like, oh, I was just reading a romance author that has a bunch of books now, and she's like, oh, I started writing in 2011, like 2014. If we're thinking about the general span of things, that's not too long ago. If you pick up your pen or, you know, your laptop and you start typing up today, you really don't know, and you sustain it, you don't know what's going to happen from now. So do it.
Norma, send me those 200 words. Norma, send me those 200 words.
Okay.
You know where to find me.
Okay. Oh God, okay.
See, we're doing it live. We're doing it right now.
Yeah. So I'm on my sister's laptop in the Bronx, and I have to go to my laptop in Manhattan. So it's gonna take
No, it's fine. At some point, but
but
still, we're gonna do it live.
Okay, thanks.
But yeah, I think it's kind of just doing it and keeping the hat. I'm not good at discipline, so this is me telling you to do things that I'm not great at, but being disciplined about it, and not even disciplined, just like continuing to do it. Like in terms of nonfiction writing that I do, it's just like I had a blog and I was blogging about TV and stuff, and then that became like, I sometimes go to film festivals and write about movies now. I don't always get paid to do that, but you know, I'm still working on that part. And like I'm a full-time writer for a major publication, and it's mostly because I kept writing on the internet, you know, and just kept doing it. And in terms of like other like fiction writing, I'm still working on that part, but you know, I've written several Hogwarts BSU fan fiction, plug it away. And the process of doing that, I've like written my longest thing yet so far, and I hopefully I'm using this as my practice to sustain this energy to keep going into the original story ideas that I have and that I am trying to get the energy to work on. So I think for me, it's been just to keep doing it, and I'm not great at it, but I think it's less about discipline and more just the act of continuing to do it. Yeah. I'm not one of those write every day type people. I'm barely a write every week type person, but it's just keeping doing it at any regularity.
I guess my advice, if like sharing your work is a huge fear, it definitely goes back to kind of the idea of like nurturing like the kind of two kind of mindsets, like the mindset where like your writing is your baby, it's your blood on the page, and it's like everything that you are booting onto the page, and like letting that come forth and letting yourself be so personally invested in that. But also nurturing the hat that's like, okay, this needs to get better, it needs to be tightened, it needs to be fixed, it needs to be like rewritten, and like knowing when to bring each side out, because like if you bring in that side too early, then the writing has no heart. But like if in the later stages where you have to start making the tough choices, you're still too kind of tied to like the like mushiness, the gooey feelings inside, like then like you are leaving some things in the story that might actually be bogging your story down. And so it's not really like picking one over the other, but like maintaining, like figuring out the dual mindset and knowing when to bring one forward. And like if you can master that mindset, like even when like the stakes are pretty low, like when it's just like you and maybe just a couple friends reading stuff, but you can still bring that mindset and bring it in, like as like you start to move forward in your career, you're going to find it's going to help you immensely when the stakes are a lot higher and the timelines are shorter, when it's like I need to be in this mode now versus I need to be in that mode. And it'll just be able to look at your work in several different ways and in different layers as you need to.
That was amazing, Resi. I'm absorbing that myself right now.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree there. It's like you can't expect a plant to grow if you keep it in the dark. And you might be afraid of getting rained out.
Bars.
But you have to give it a chance to get sunlight and to get the nutrients it needs to succeed. And your writing is the same. It's going to be scary and it will be painful, but you're going to end up with something beautiful.
Y'all should write or something. Cool. So we're like wrapping up. That went by fast. So thank you all for like doing this. I've been really excited about this for however long it's been since I asked you to do it. So can we go around and just let us know where folks can find you, any like cool things coming up, and yeah, just plug.
I'll go first. I'm at Lily Meade, LILYMEADE. It's Meade, like the alcohol with an E at the end, on all platforms. Hopefully, I have new YouTube videos coming up. I'm trying to prioritize the college work before anything else, but that's done by June. So, if not before then, definitely by June. Oh, I am going to the ALA annual conference in Chicago in also in June. So if anyone else is planning on going there or is in the Chicago area, I will be there for a week, and I would love to see you.
Nice.
Cool. I'm Constar24 everywhere. ConstarRights.com. That has not been updated in a while, but it's fine, whatever. Most things end up on Twitter, so you can find all my things there, including my like professional day job work and fan fiction and all that jazz.
My Twitter is Norma Jean with an E at the end. Sup Lily says there's some news if you're local to the NYC tri-state area. There's some news to Bronx Book Festival that I'm a part of, so please keep an eye out for that. Thank you. And buy all my authors' books. Thank you.
I'm at Rosie's Rambles. So that's ROSIESRAMBLES on Twitter and Instagram. I'm often on Twitter almost all the time, so please come say hi. A Song of Wraiths and Ruin is June 2nd. Here's the cover again. This is not upside down. Here we go. So this is June 2nd. Actually, fun fact, today is actually 100 days out from launch. Exactly.
Did you tweet about it? Did you post about that with a link?
Not yet. I should
Okay, there's still time. There's still 4 hours to say there's 100 days. Okay, that.
Yeah, exactly 100 days is terrifying, but I will save that for another conversation. And other stuff coming up. I have some stuff okay, y'all didn't hear this from me because I'm not supposed to talk about. There is some stuff in the work. Watch my Twitter. Some stuff might be announced soon. I can't say anything else, but like good stuff's happening. So yes, come chat with me. I like talking about anime.
I'm at Kalynn Bayron on Twitter and Instagram. Also, you can find me at KalynnBayron.com. I'll be at the Mountains and Plains Independent Bookseller Association SpringCon next month. I think it's the 12th in Richardson, Texas. And my YA fantasy, Cinderella is Dead. I think hold on.
Yes!
Yes.
Yes.
July 7th in the US and August 6th in the UK. So, yeah.
Yay. I'm so excited. All right. Thank you all for joining. I hope everyone in the chat is following all of these amazing people.
Who are you, Bayana?
Oh, I'm Bayana. I do things.
Yana_Hollows.
I'm at Yana_Hollows on Twitter, and at We Black and Nerds is like Black Girls Create, where all of our stuff is.
And she didn't talk about her writing, but it's fire and it's in progress. If you know any agents, send them her way. Thank you. I don't care.
Yeah, I know.
Send any agents her way. They will want to read her stuff. That's all I gotta say. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, friend. But thank you. And yeah. Bye, y'all.
Bye. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right.
Hey.
I just saw Delia been writing. I was trying to figure out what the last part was.
I love it.
We have a little time, but I was like, everybody's here, so.
Hey, y'all.
Yes.
I have the worst like zit right here. It's driving me insane.
It's always like, oh, right when you have to like do something.
Oh God, I was like,
Hey.
I've been super stressed out because of this apartment hunt and super zitty because of it. And so I'm like, thank goodness for makeup because
Thank goodness. The real one. Just
No.
didn't show my face outside. It would just be like horror. People would be looking at me like,
Oh no.
I did not have a nap today, guys. I'm feeling it. I was watching all the con stuff and was like, I'm just gonna stay up and do it. And now I'm like, who's got the Red Bull?
hey, listen. Sometimes you do what you got to do.
Like
I'm
I'm just
getting
gonna
the
have
Red Bull sometimes, you know.
to, yeah, I'm just gonna have to up the bedtime today and not stay up late. So I'm okay. I'll be fine.
Pull up mine.
what time does it start? Is it 6:30?
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
early.
Yes.
I'm good.
I mean, but yesterday's last panel went long, so I imagine.
I mean, you know,
There's nobody.
we knew what we were doing.
Yeah. I know I changed my name because I was like, oh, this ain't like this is fun. I'm about to have fun. Let's kiki.
Does anyone hear that beeping sound?
I do. Yeah. I don't know what that is though. Is it mine? Probably. Is it? No.
Mute yourself.
Wait, here, let's take turns mute. It's Bianca. Something with your audio is causing static.
What do it could be?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You think it's mine?
Oh,
Yeah.
now it's
I
gone.
think so.
Oh no.
Well, it's gone now. Oh, no.
It was muted.
When it was muted, it went away.
It stopped. Yeah.
Say something. Try talking again. Say something.
Hi.
Where's your microphone?
That's a good question, girl. Is it still being weird?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It goes in and out.
Do you have headphones with the microphone attached to it?
Uh-huh.
Do you want to try those out?
Hold on. Oh. I'm on the floor.
Amani says it might be the Bluetooth.
Oh. Okay.
Oh, I didn't know we were live.
Oh.
Because I can't.
Yeah,
turn
they
it
could
off.
see
Like,
us.
in the broadcast. Then like the whole thing is like.
Yeah. Behind the scenes.
Man.
Behind the scenes.
Oh. It's okay. We're early, so she's got time to figure it out.
Yeah.
Anybody else get dragged by the last panel?
A little bit.
I was just like, oh, so I just need to go in and write, you know? I can't just like put ideas in my head and then, you know, one day magically the muse comes, which is what happens to every author who's published. They have a muse fairy.
Right.
And a muse fairy helps them to get their writing out. And that's how it works. No? Oh.
That's what I thought. That's what I was told. My Muse Fairy's been real fickle lately, so.
The problem with the
She
Muse
fake.
Fairy is that she actually, when the Muse Fairy comes, you're like, oh, I feel it. I feel the Muse Fairy, so I know it exists. And
The
then
Muse Fairy comes when you're sleeping. That's the problem. You get all your greatest ideas as you're going to bed, and you're like, oh,
Bruh.
you really do that in the morning. And then the morning comes, and you're like,
I don't know what that was.
I don't remember anything that you
Because I
told
have
me
a rule for
yesterday.
myself, like
I've
no
tried- yeah, I've
screens
tried to,
after I go to bed, but
I've tried to like write things down like every once in a while. If I'm still like falling asleep, I like pick my phone up and write like a word, and then I wake up the next morning like I don't know what the fuck that meant. like that
I
was
do it on my phone, like on my notes app or whatever. I'll try to write the words, and then. But it's funny because I read, was it Parks and Rec, where Leslie Knope was like, yeah, I tried to write, like having a notebook while I was out of my bed and writing before, like when I had like a thought when I woke up or when I went to before I get to sleep. And she's like, but I had weird words on there like waffle taco or like, it didn't make any, she's like, so yeah, it doesn't make any sense. I don't know, but for mine, I just feel like I get too tired. First off, I'm not a good sleeper. I don't like actually tell myself to like chill down and go to sleep. I'm like, I'm up until I'm not up anymore. And then I'm like, who betrayed me? How did I go to sleep this time? I'm not good about like actually like planning my sleep. So
oh no, absolutely not. Who plan sleep? People actually be going to bed. They're like, oh, it's 9 p.m. It's time for bed. Yeah, see, I don't even know who that is. What is that? What's that like?
When I tell you, like literally today, like I was watching the clock and I was like, okay, the first panel starting like right around 4. It hit 3:30 and I was like, it's nap time. It's nap time. And I was like, okay, let me find something interesting to watch until it starts. But literally, unless there's a Kentucky game on, when 3:30 comes around, I'm grabbing my blanket, I'm coming upstairs, and I'm setting my alarm to wake up around 5:30, 5:15. It is, my naps are planned, they are perfect, and they are amazing. I'm going to feel it in the morning. I am.
I wish I could take naps, but I can't make my brain shut down like long enough. Like it takes me too long to fall asleep. So by the time I like wake up, it's like I might as well just stay here. Like
I just stay hitting the caffeine. That's what I do. That's my method.
And I don't like coffee and stuff. So
I don't drink coffee.
Now I can't even drink any
I don't like
anyway, so
coffee, but I like sugar milk coffee water.
Well, yes, now I can't even
amazing.
drink that anymore.
It is
So,
amazing.
I just have to drink water and like I don't know. I have to figure out what
Tragic.
I can do now. Yeah.
Tragic. Yeah.
And can we hear you now, Bianca?
I don't know. Can you?
Oh, we can.
Okay, perfect. Yeah,
Yes.
We're gonna have to do this live, no headphones, because the baby had it the last time I saw it, and who knows where he put it.
Oh.
Don't pick me.
They're so cute. It's excused. It's fine.
Yeah, I'm just imagining the baby like running around the house with headphones.
Yes.
Yeah,
Always moving.
Yeah.
Well,
I love
I
it.
think we're
on time.
Mm-hmm, look at that.
Awesome. So should we get started now? We have 1 minute left.
Yeah, I'm ready to start whenever.
Ready.
I'll get a bonus minute of content, y'all.
Right?
Maybe that'll keep us from being going over at the end.
That's cute.
All right, everyone. So I'm Portia Patterson-Harris with Black Girls Create, and today I'm moderating this really cool discussion among some familiar faces to a lot of you, most likely. These are all people who have written a Hogwarts BSU story at some point in their magical lives. And I'm going to start by asking everyone to share your name, your pronouns, and since this is like the Hogwarts BSU session, I'm gonna switch it up a little bit. I want you to share the Harry Potter character that you most identify with or is most like you. And that could be within your own house or it could be in someone else's house, but I would like to hear you tell us who that is.
Who are we starting with?
Who wants to start?
I'll go. I am Bayana. I am a co-founder and editor-in-chief of Black Girls Create. My pronouns are she, her, and I am gonna have to go with Hermione, which I feel like it's not a surprise, but yeah, I am her Ravenclaw side because there are some things that I don't have the energy for it. But in terms of just like, you know, being dedicated to books and like and like just like being an overachiever and all that kind of stuff, that's me.
Hi, I'm Delia. We all know. I mean, I'm pretty sure. Pronouns are she, her. You know, I used to really like this question because it was always an instant Hermione, duh. But like as an adult and a more self-realized and also somebody who's read the books more critically, I don't know. Like probably a mixture of Hermione and Luna. Like somewhere in there is like where I'm at. If it's a spectrum of type of Ravenclaw from Hermione, even though she wasn't a Ravenclaw, from Hermione all the way to Luna, I'm somewhere in the middle. But yeah, both of them.
I am Stacy. Pronouns are she, her, and I have always identified with Hermione, my fellow Griff, and I love and I'm obsessed with Angelina Johnson. So I definitely see a lot of me in her. So yeah, I'm a book blogger and an avid reader.
Well, that leaves me.
That's you.
Hi, I'm Bianca Ramos. She, her pronouns. I guess now I would say that I probably am a Luna Lovegood, like for sure. When I was younger, I identified definitely more with Hermione, you know, being in the books and whatnot. But I've always been way quirkier than I think I was willing to admit. So yeah, I'm definitely a Luna.
Wait, time out. I have to revise my answer because I think my head always goes to students. Pretend like this didn't happen. Didn't happen. It's McGonagall. It's gotta be.
I thought you were gonna say McGonagall when you said as a grown up, as an adult who has been like reevaluating and critiquing the series. I thought you were gonna say McGonagall, and I was like,
it was right there. I don't know. Look, we're pretending that didn't happen. It's obviously.
Okay, y'all. So we all know you've written Hogwarts BSU stories, but we don't know the story behind why you wrote those stories. So could you explain what inspired you to write your Hogwarts BSU story or stories?
I guess maybe I should go first. So I guess so Hogwarts BSU in general, was a conversation that I had with my dad, and he has a lot of like, he's an ideas guy. And he was just like, yeah, you know, what if you started writing stuff from the Black students at Hogwarts? What would they be doing? And I'm like, so he was like getting on me about this like a couple weeks ago because he's like, I always give y'all ideas and then you just like ignore me or whatever. And so he was like, I always tell y'all stuff and then y'all don't want to listen to my advice. And I was like, I mean, yeah, but in this particular case, I was like, no, that's actually like really interesting. And not having really, I mean, I think I had read like a little bit of fanfic at that point, but like not very much. I kind of was like, that could be cool. And then we started it and it took a long time for it to like, we had like 3 posts for like 2 years. But I think for me, it never really was like about writing the fic. It was just about like reading the fic. I was like, this is just what I want to see. So I guess the one that I've written most recently came out of me being messy and
yes, man.
I had spent all this time watching a lot of the Real Housewives of Atlanta and Potomac, and then also Married to Medicine because I couldn't stop. And so then I was like, well, I know the format and things are messy at Hogwarts. They love mess over there. They don't know how to do nothing right. So why not? So that was and also because I like tend to write more serious, angsty things. And so I was like, let's write something fun.
Felicity Dura for me was my character, like the identity I gave myself within the story. So when we decided to do the Victory Day writing, I was like, this is perfect because that's the moment that I always saw her in, was that because I wanted her to be my actual age and I wanted her to have that moment where she sees everything. So she's really affected by it and she's got this kind of thing that she has to live with when she's like older at Hogwarts. So that's where the first fic came, and I really wanted to draw in the Angelina Johnson connection because I wanted her to have somebody there that she'd already looked up to that was like really involved in the fight. And then the decision came about because I feel like Hermione's so cerebral that the explanation that we got for that just, oh, I sent my mom and dad to Australia, just was not enough. Like there's no way Hermione was just like, all right, guys, you guys have to go, and then ship them off, even though they've got like their dentists, people know them, they've got this whole life. Like, what would that be like to come back to, and can they come back for it? The more that I dug into that, it was like, there's no way. Like, she had to literally change everything about their life. And I wanted to see where that would have gone and just kind of fill in that blank. And it got dark, it got emotional. It was very much like, you know, you have to let your parents go. And it was kind of that bridge too between her coming from a Muggle family, but then completely diving into the wizarding world and what that kind of sacrifice would be. So I was happy with, you know, what I was able to write in that. I was really proud of that, but it was definitely very just, oh, we went there. Whoa, okay. This is what we're doing. But you know, Amani threw gas in the Slack and was like, if you want the story to be told. And I was like, all right, well, here we go. And here we are.
And it is one of those things, like once you jump, because sometimes you don't even know what you're getting into when you jump into it.
Yep.
Like, and then you pull back these layers and it's like, oh, so we're gonna go in and
yeah.
For me, I don't know, my background's different because I think for a lot of people who write for BSU in general, it's like their first foray into like fan fiction. It wasn't for me. It's the only thing that survives on the internet. That's the case. But like, I've written fan fiction since I started reading fan fiction when I was like 10, which is nuts. But the experience, but it never occurred to me, like you have self-insert fan fiction kind of, and you have like this idea, especially when I was younger, this idea of writing like just this like essentially Mary Sue character. Like we've all read, well, if you've been in fan fiction at the right age, we've all read it and like written it for if you were writing it at the time. But it never occurred to me, like, this is how white the fandom was. It never occurred to me to write a Black character. Like, you could do that? Like, that's wild. I mean, this was like back in the early mid 2000s before like Black Hermione was a thing. I mean, some people read her as Black, but for the most part, broadly, it was still in the fandom that she was white. So when coming to see, like, read about Hogwarts BSU and like find Wizard Team, I still wasn't sure. Like, the first thing I wrote, is that true? Is the first thing I wrote for Hogwarts BSU to all the wizards? Anybody got a timestamp on that? I don't really know. I don't remember. The first thing I published, I should say, the first thing I wrote was actually the story that just published this year. An Abundance of Hats is what we called it, because I had written it at the time. And I think that story, more than anything probably I've ever written, which is weird because it's fan fiction, like, resonated with me as a person personally. Like, Sandra, I related to a lot. I think that's why I didn't publish it last year, because I was just like, this doesn't seem like it's a story. It just seems like I'm writing about myself, kind of, because, you know, for those who haven't read it, Sandra is this mixed girl struggling with her identity in being mixed, and like also the imposter syndrome that can come along with it, I guess. It was a lot. It was heavy when I wrote it, and I didn't like it. And I think I didn't like it because I identified with it too much. I had to be a full year removed to open it back up and edit it and be like, actually, this isn't that bad. So yeah, I wanted to tell a story, I don't know, to see what it would actually be like if I actually went to Hogwarts, I guess. I mean, obviously there's differences. Like, I'm not some charms master here, but yeah, with that one. And then with To All the Wizards, we know why I wrote that. We
thank you for it.
We did it. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I started writing because of two things. One, just finding a community within Wizard Team. And then 2, I hate everything about Joe trying to write magic in North America. And I didn't realize how much I just hated it until I had already been deep within Wizard Team stuff and I started analyzing it a lot more. And it just felt so fake to me. I'm like, how is this woman gonna tell me that in this country where they do the things that they do, that we're just cool like that? All of us are cool. And it just,
respect and kinship.
Yeah, and from there it just came like all these stories and all these ideas, which I probably wouldn't have really put a lot of work or thought into unless I had Wizard Team and the gang and everybody at Black Girls Create. So yeah, that's basically why I'm writing. It's all the gas. So if you guys want to write, go and get your free gas.
Yeah, that part.
They give it for you with an abundance.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, gasoline for your fire, your fuel, so it just burns out of control. Hopefully, the typing fingers for stories.
Yeah.
So Delia talks a bit about this, but and you talked a little bit about this too, Bianca, about like how like you started writing. Was that your first time writing fanfic, or specifically Harry Potter fic? And had you written any original fiction and published it before Black Girls Create, or was this just the first time? So kind of like spurred you to like, was it because of your fandom and the community, or was there something else that like made you be like, you know what, I can write and I can write for them? Like what made you feel like this is the space that I can write and create in?
I guess I would say probably being so comfortable within the community, because I wanted to write. I wanted to be a writer when I was like little, when I was a kid. But as you grow up thinking that, it kind of changes on you. Because for me, in my family, I was like the reader, the one that was more into that sort of thing. My family didn't really go there. So as I'm growing up and I'm kind of reading these stories, they're buying me stuff that, has collections of stories because I'm blowing through them, right? So they're like, we're not going to be buying you a book every other day. We're going to buy you like Babysitter's Club because there's a million of them. And you can just keep reading and not stop. But, just as I was growing up, I wasn't really seeing any books about people like me. And I didn't have anyone that was like moving me towards that. So I'm like, there's no space for me to write. And that dream kind of like fell to the wayside. And I think just getting older and then, finding a place within the community, especially, being deep in the Harry Potter fandom now, because I love the books, but I wasn't like in it because that didn't feel like a place for me. But that's it. Like just finding a place later on and then feeling like, okay, I can do this. And then you just send the draft, and for me, it's like, it's above me now. So
that's exactly how I feel. I'm like, all right, y'all.
Yeah, I sent it, they can say it's trash and that'll be it. I don't know. But so far, it hasn't been trash, I guess.
I think that's the thing. Like, some people have, fear submitting it. First of all, Connie and Bayana are super nice. So you don't even have to worry. But also, I think usually by the time I'm ready to submit something, I'm at the point where I'm like, look, I don't even want it anymore. You have it.
Yeah.
So the question is, have I written fic? I already answered that. I did write fic before. But I also have written like, not fic, like fan fiction, definitely personal original work. And I don't think I've ever like properly published them like in school publications, and I was also on newspaper in high school and stuff like that, but like not out here like a published novelist. Maybe one day. But I don't think I think it was less for me a fear of, is my writing good enough for people to read? More of, do I have a perspective that anybody would even care to read? And so finding Black Girls Create at large, but also just this section of the fandom, like of marginalized people that are looking for stories I was looking for. But at the time I thought, especially if you were reading fan fiction back in like the early to mid 2000s, wouldn't even think to look for it. Like, it didn't feel like anybody else cared about that. So you just put it back of your mind. It's like, well, I'll take what I can get. I don't need those stories. And I think it's kind of telling that growing up, I wanted to be a writer, but I wanted to be like either a sci-fi writer or a fantasy writer, because it seemed like that was the only place where like perspectives like mine could exist. Like, we don't exist in temporary fiction at that time. So yeah, just finding this community in general allowed me to see that, oh no, there's people who are interested in these types of stories too. It's not just me. But also, we just the last writing panel and then the podcasting panel before that, a lot's been said, like even if it's just one person that wants to read it. So that was problematic thinking anyways, but that's how I came to publish it, I guess.
Yeah.
I think I've always go ahead, Bayana.
Go ahead. No, you
I think I've always written, but it was always more of, I've got a story in my head, let me get it out of my head. It's never been something that I've wanted to actively develop. And I've always seen myself way more of a reader than a writer. Reading actually stops me from putting in the time to write. So I'm always like, oh, but there's a book right here that I can dive into. Like, I'll just do that instead of the actual writing portion of it. I wasn't in any kind of fandom until I joined the Slack for Black Girls Create. So I had never read a fanfic, never was really interested in fanfic. I didn't even realize it was a thing until like the last 3 or 4 years that people were really like devoting time into fanfic. So when I joined the community and started looking at BSU stuff, I was like, oh, wow, we out here. Like, this is like, there's stuff here that's got us written into it. And yeah, being a part of the community was very much like, oh, okay, so this is what we're doing. All right, well, then let's see. And that's the first time I was really like, well, maybe I can actually write down this story and see what it becomes. And yeah, that first draft, that handoff was very much like, bloop. You go ahead and do what you can to that. And let's see if we can make this work at all. I felt a lot more comfortable with the decision story, having put something out there already and gotten the feedback and gotten the support for it. I was like, let me just type this thing out and I'll hand it off to Bayana. Bayana can do it what she please and see where it goes from there. But until then, I hadn't ever really been like, all right, we're gonna go ahead and do something with this and see like how any of this develops, if I can even mainstream like the thoughts that I've had in my mind. It was also one of the first times that I've gotten it on paper and seen where the end was going to be and got to that point instead of it just being like, there's the thought. Now I can move on. So that's the first time that I've had that happen. So yeah.
For me, I didn't start writing fic until the first Black Wizard History Month, actually. So like we had done Hogwarts VSU, and I was editing those fics, but I didn't, like, I maybe had a couple ideas and I was like, it wasn't like a priority for me because that's not, like, especially this last like year or so, like I've been writing a lot, but I've been doing a lot of like original stuff and trying to like pull all that together. And so like I've been writing since I was a kid, and like to various degrees of like goodness and like doneness. I don't think I actually ever finished anything for real until like a couple years ago. But it was funny because like I wrote stuff for Black Wizard History Month a couple years ago, and like I put I wasn't really thinking about it because I was like, it's just fake, it's just Hogwarts VSU. Like at that point, it like whatever. And I put out the first thing, and I was like, I never did this. Like I didn't, like I kind of didn't occur to me that like I hadn't written anything and like put it out. But I also, I think for me, because Hogwarts VSU to me is like it's like an editing project. So like I like writing fic and like it's cool, but I think in my head when I think about writing like my own stuff and like trying to figure out my worlds and not so much playing in Joe's. But I love editing fic. Like it's one of my favorite things because then I'm like, I just get them sent to me and then I can just read it.
It's really hard to
I don't even have to go search on AO3 and like find all these like disappointing fics. I can just get them sent to my inbox. So like it's so selfish, but it's so much fun. So like, so please send me more. But yeah, so I think that's like part of it is I guess compartmentalize it, if that makes sense.
So I feel like there's a lot, like we keep talking about like different fics that people have written, but I feel like Bayana, like there's so many fics that you've written for Hogwarts BSU. Like I know there is like the Kwanzaa series, the Black Student Union series, and Delia has like For All the Wizards, but you also have other things that you've done as well. And then Stacey, you mentioned Felicity, and we know about like Bianca's Gnaw and other things. So could you tell us a bit more about like not only those fics, but other fics that you've written for Hogwarts BSU and what it why is it important for you to tell those character stories, especially like given like the greater fandom and like the story of canon that we have for Harry Potter?
I think it's important because canon is, I mean, like Jessie said in the chat, that Jo is trash about writing about anything in America. And I think that's true, but also she's trash at writing anything about marginalized people in general, not just minorities or Black people, like just in general. She doesn't have the range. And I think just once you start exploring like the idea of what would this world actually look like if it actually existed, not how she's painted it to look, it becomes a much more interesting story. Like writing, like I'm trying to think of the title. I forgot. Look, once the story's out of my head, like it is forgotten. I'm not even joking. What did I call it? I don't know. It's about a. Oh, Amani said she writes for the underdog. Anyways, it's about Hermione going to this benefit where they unveil this portrait of the trio, and it's just a one shot, and it's Dean Miney Light because that's where I live. And you know, just first of all, like the epilogue is not good, but also just trying to imagine like what do these characters deal with after the war realistically as Black people, which Hermione is Black, hi, hello, but also what is Dean doing? Like he's an artist. We know that from book one. What happens with that? And I just think it makes the world richer, and that's why I think it's important, and that's why I enjoy doing it. Just because the magic is in the, like, it's a story about magic, but the magic is actually in the characters. Like, yeah. And I think we create magic when we lend ourselves to it, I guess.
Cece was my baby. Like, honestly, like she was. Like when I think I've shown you guys in Slack, like my husband had an ID made for me that was like the Felicity and Dura Hogwarts alumni. And I made a space for myself. So when the opportunity came to share that space, I took it. And I was like, okay, so this is that moment. So what is that like for her? One of the only Black girls there, obviously, because it's Hogwarts and you didn't see a lot of brown faces. What would that have been for her, that kind of fear? And it was important for me just because I think for myself, I wanted to finally write that fic for her and let me see what she would have really been like in that moment. And then you can see the griffness in her and her wanting to stay, even though it would have been a horrible situation for an 11-year-old to be in with like 2 spells underneath her belt. But that also not wanting to leave her family. And I love being in the world that Jo created. And I think that's part of it too, because the more she proves that she's trash, the more I want to save that love that I have for the story. So that was definitely something that I was thinking about while in it. Like, what would make this story more important to me? And it was that moment of between the two of them and kind of seeing what was happening with some of those characters outside of Harry. So yeah, because it is hard right now with Jo behaving the way that she is. And our fanfic is really saving that for me, because I'm not going to be able to ever let go of the stories, but having that breath of fresh air when she's doing everything she can to ruin what's left. Low Crimes of Grindelwald, like So I'm taking these moments where I can write a story and work on something to help bring in that distraction from what she's unfortunately proven herself to be. The Hermione fic was a lot easier because she had laid that foundation, and I just kind of dove into that and fleshed it out because she didn't. But yeah, I like being able to see her parents and give them a name because they did not have one, which
They did not.
That drove me insane. That realization, like, we didn't get a name for them until they were Monica and Wendell, which, okay, let me at least do that. And I like that I started off the story with giving them their identity for us to get to see them as people outside of Mr. Weasley badgering them about the fact that they're muggles. So, so that was a big part of it too. But yeah, I just wanted to breathe something different and new into the story that came from like our own lens. That hopefully wasn't trash. So yeah.
It wasn't.
My babies.
2 B's.
Yeah.
So okay.
We want to hear you talk about Beneath the Surface, please.
What's funny is that like Risha brought up 2 like different like ones I've written. I was like, oh, I've actually written way more than I thought I did. Anyway, but first BSU verse was something that like Connie and I had actually spiraled on a year before we actually wrote it. So I don't remember why, honestly. I just know that at some point we were talking about like, oh, but what if there was like an actual Hogwarts BSU and not just like the name of the project? And then we were in a Google Doc, and then we had written things down, and then we left it for like a year. Or no, then Connie had written Umoja for Black Wizard History Month, and then we didn't look at it again until December. And I think that was around the time that Delia had sent us like the beginning of To All the Wizards, or maybe just the idea.
Oh no,
of
I sent you what I sent y'all was like, this is what I'm thinking about. No, these are the stories I'm thinking about for Black Wizard History Month, and then y'all were like,
yeah, the last one was the main one was To All the Wizards, and we were like, I don't know why you even playing with us with all these other things. Like we would like to see those, but you already know what it is. But I don't remember, like somehow because like she had sent us that, we were both like, oh, but we should like do this, and we could just make it Kwanzaa themed, and Kwanzaa was coming up. We were like, we can just write them because they're short and like whatever. And like since then we've like added to it and did different because we're writing them out of order. So and because they're short mostly. And so that was mostly just like, I don't know, it's cool. I like writing something with someone else and like making this like mini world within this world. It's fun, and like, you know, you can make up characters, and so that was that. And then Beneath the Surface was also Delia's fault, because we like To All the Wizards was happening, and we're like editing that and like talking about that, and somehow we were talking about Hermione and how it didn't make sense, and then she went on this whole rant. Like, somebody needs to write. She was like, why not Blaze? I need to write Blaze. And I was like, you're in the middle of writing To All the Wizards right now, so I can't make you write Blaze. So I guess I'll just do it. And I had also been like, I had needed something at the time. I was looking for something I had just started like submitting stuff. And so I was looking for something to distract myself from like waiting to hear back from people. So I was like, I'll just do this because it's like low stakes and whatever. So yeah, that's kind of what it was. I was like, I don't like, the ship is whatever, but why not? Like, why Draco? Why not Blaze? You know what I mean? It was really just like and that's most of my
things, but it's better because he's not a Nazi.
That part.
Exactly. So that's I feel like that's kind of how most of the things that I like end up writing is just like a conversation, and I'm like, I guess I could.
Basically, Connie or me saying, "Hey,
I have to do this. Why not this?" And I'm like,
dang,
fine,
got
I guess. So yeah.
Oh, so
and then there was one B.
Yeah. Okay. So the reason I've written the most things that I've written, I guess. Most of them are in, of course, North America, so we all know why. I've written so many of them. I think it's just because I'm a glutton for punishment and I don't like unfinished things. So I don't know. I just have all these ideas for schools because one school doesn't make sense.
Not at all.
So I don't know. It's just I want all of my things to connect. I started with Na, and then from Na, it's like the schools. So now I'm starting to kind of work on the schools.
She's out here world building, y'all.
Man.
We love it.
And like,
We love to see it.
Yeah, and then Exposed was also inspired by Na because we, eventually they would have to get found out. So that story just came out this month. And then I've also written like a couple of stories about women characters, so Marietta and Lavender. And yeah, and I just think those came out of conversations we've had about how Joe treats women in the stories. And I don't know, I just would like justice for all these women. So I randomly get inspired and then, have to write a story about how to fix what she did. And I actually started writing one about Cho, but I don't know if I have the range. We'll see.
I personally would absolutely love to see it. Please,
me too.
In my inbox, at least. I don't know what you don't have to show everybody else, but I would like to see it.
Yeah.
So, having written part one and sent it out to the world of a story of like BSU fic, I felt pretty like vulnerable whenever I like knew other people were reading my stuff that weren't like Bayana and like the team. So how did it feel for y'all whenever you knew that your stories are going out there in the world, and like, your first story, does it change after you have other stories gone out? So you're like, oh, now I'm on story 6, it's fine, people can read it, it's great? Or do you still find yourself like, do you have any concerns or any like insecurities whenever you know that your story is being written, read by other people that aren't just like a little tight circle of people?
Ooh, can I go first?
Yes.
Okay. So first of all, I want to say I'm sorry to Bayana and Delia and Connie because I never felt so yikes until I had like 50 people in the Slack yelling at me, where's the rest of the story after Exposed? And I know that I am one of the loudest people in the Slack, like, where is the rest of the story? We need more Dean Miney. We need it. Oh my God, girl.
It's real.
That was me. That was me.
Oh, okay. And actually, I felt that at first with Exposed because I was reading the notes when Bayana edited it. And at the bottom, it was like, oh, that's cool. So where's the rest? And I was like, oh, yikes.
Like, what?
That was it, girl. That's all. I mean, I left it open, but I was just like, oh, that's what we're doing. And that's the end. So, yeah. But anxiety, not so much, because in my mind, I'm like, only everybody in the Slack reads it. I know that's probably not true because it does go on Twitter and everywhere else. And true. Then didn't somebody on Twitter was saying they wanted a novel as well?
Yes.
I wasn't ready for that. So yeah, so not so much anxiety, but like I think it's more excitement now to see what everyone thinks. That's all.
I was terrified my first one because I was like, this is something that I've kept so close to the chest for so long that I was like, if nobody likes it, like, what if this is something that I put out there and everybody's like, oh, okay, I guess. After that one though, I was like, okay, well, over that, let's just do it. So when I did the decision and I sent that to Bayana and I got the feedback and we went back and forth with that. I think I was working and my phone started going off and I saw Stacy and Parseltongue come in from Connie. And she was like, I don't have any notes, but you're benched. And I was like, sweet, this is a good one. And then it got closer to it in the Slack. And I was like, I'm so going to be benched. I think that's the first thing I sent back was everyone's going to bench me for this because okay. And that's exactly what happened. And I was like, Yes, I got people's emotions though. Like I felt that and I was like, people are relating to it. So I did something right. But I don't think I was necessarily nervous with that one. I think that one I was really excited. I wanted to I felt good about the fact that I was able to pull all that together. So the nerves weren't there. But I did know that a lot of people were going to bench me for that one. And I was prepared for that. So now I think I just feel better about it. I think I feel comfortable enough in the community to where people, I respect the feedback. So even if someone hated it, I think I'd be able to take in that criticism and apply it and push forward. Where with the first one, I was just really nervous about the idea of putting anything out there. Now I'm just like, all right, well, let's go. We're going to see where this takes us. So looking forward to writing more, it's just like, all right, well, they got my back regardless. So even if someone hates it, someone in the story, someone in our group will relate to it in some way. I think that's what I'm looking forward to now more so than ever, is that I know that we've got enough support there to where even if someone else hates it, someone else is going to love it. I just have to push through and keep creating at this point because I can see the stories that I kind of want to tell moving forward. So, yeah.
I think, I don't know. I did it backwards, I think. Honestly, like the first time, I don't know. I don't get really, I think because I like hold on to something until I'm like, I'm over it. Honestly, like that's you. I don't even, like, I can't even anymore. The first time around, like pretty much posting To All the Wizards, like I wasn't nervous at all, but I'm not like, again, like a very nervous person, like, but also I knew like we like to all the boys, we like Harry Potter, like somebody's gonna like it, like, and that's good. But what ended up happening with To All the Wizards, specifically the first chapter, for whatever reason blew the heck up, like even on the analytics on the website, like we're not really sure what happened, but it blew all the way up. And so I think the opposite, because through that, not because I think like I'm an amazing writer or anything, but that hyped my writing up to like a level that it actually is not, it seems. So anytime I post stuff now,
yeah,
like real nervous, and I'm like, oh shoot, like this is not To All the Wizards, y'all. Like I feel the pressure of that and like what I've written before more than anything, because like not everything's gonna be just in life, like not everything's gonna be your best writing, like that's just facts. And so I get nervous when I post stuff. So actually, yeah, this year was more nerve-wracking than last year, weirdly. Don't know. Did it backwards.
A mess, but I'm gonna let you live for now. I didn't get nervous, but only because like I said, I hadn't realized that I hadn't posted anything before. And the first one I did post was like a sort of like Pottermore thing. So it was about like magic, like black wand makers in the South. And I wrote it from like purely a petty place. So when I posted it, I was just kind of like, because of the format and because of like the reason I wrote it, it didn't feel like super like personal. So it was very much just like, oh, it's it's cool or whatever. And since then I haven't really, I think maybe because I hadn't like really thought about it like that. And also I think because it's the platform I created, like I've been talking mess on Wizard Team for a long time. Like at that point I felt like the barrier was kind of already broken in a way that maybe not for like my other writing at whatever point that becomes available to the public. But honestly, like this last one, I was just excited. I still need to finish it. I haven't actually finished it yet, but like mostly I just, as I was writing it, I was excited. Like, as I was writing it, I was just like, this is the best. I've never done anything as great as this. Like, I was like talking to my dad and my stepmom, and I was like, this is my greatest work. Like, I did Black Girls Crate, and that was cool. And like, Wizard Team, whatever. And like, I've written fanfic before, and I write my own stuff. But
Girls written whole novels, but she was really out here. She's like,
I've been stressing about these novels that I'm trying to write, but it doesn't even matter because this is the best that I can do. And like so that made it like, and then seeing the reactions from that was great because all the reactions people had, I was having as I was writing it. So that was like, so it was really great because I just got to like relive it again. So yeah, I feel like it's definitely like weird though that because I'm generally like putting yourself out there in that way can be really like nerve-wracking. And I think the only reason it wasn't for me is because it was like something I had created, like the platform that I had created, because like I wouldn't have just like written that and put it on AO3 or like written that and tweeted it out like, hey, I wrote this. Like I would never do anything like that. If somebody else was like, Hogwarts BSU, like write for this thing, I don't know that I would. Maybe I would, if I like given the right circumstances or whatever. But just I think it would definitely feel like it would have different emotions attached to it, I think, than what I have.
And you had been writing on Black Girls Create in general, so I can imagine that didn't feel
right.
That
all them
different.
blog posts.
Yeah, all them blog posts.
Yikes. That too.
Okay, so we've spoken about like what has been and what is there for people to see, and in the chat, Bayana did share the link to the Hogwarts BSU's webpage, so you can scroll through there and see all the many titles that are written by this wonderful group of people, but also others who are not here in the chat, but who are here in our hearts because they are a big part of our Hogwarts BSU. So, and knowing all that is available now, let's talk about what's going on in your minds deep inside there. What are some stories that you might have on the back burner that are either like other fanfic, and it could be fanfic that's Harry Potter fic, it could be some other series fic. I would like to hear what that is, if it's there. And also any original stories that you may have ideas about, if you feel like sharing.
I am actively working on a Dean's Mom fic that's about look at Delia. So it's playing on Joanne's little reveal that Dean's dad was actually a wizard who was killed by Death Eaters. So it's gonna play on the fact that as a Muggle, she was way more aware of what was going on in the Wizarding world than she's ever led on. That for Dean's own safety, she's kind of kept to herself. So I'm actively working on that. I'm also working, or at least I'm visualizing in my head an Angelina and Harry moment that takes place after Goblet of Fire, going into the 5th book. Nothing romantic at all. Just like a little, like never. I would never do that to Angelina. But just something, just a kind of, I feel like I was having this conversation with Portia. I feel like there's way more to the relationship with the Quidditch team than we've ever gotten to see. And I would kind of like to see
the Gryffindor Quidditch team.
Yeah, the Gryffindor Quidditch team than we ever got to see in the books. And I would like to see that a moment between the two of them after everything that happened with Harry, because I feel like if anybody believes in therapy, it's the Black people that go to Hogwarts. So I kind of would like to see that moment bridged. And I've always got ideas kind of thrumming in my head, and I would like to explore more, but nothing definitive. It's just gonna have to be something that hits one day that I finally sit down and I'm like, oh, okay, well, let's start typing this out and see if it goes anywhere. But I definitely do have my eyes on those 2 fics. And I would like for the Dean one. I would like to see the Dean one kind of become more than one thing. So it would be, look at Delia's eyes. It would be cool to see if I can actually stretch that out and have it be from the end of 6th year through to the battle. But we're gonna have to see. We'll see what happens if I finish the first one.
Just pull it in.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens with that. But that one's being actively worked on. I already told Bayana and Connie that Google Doc will get dropped eventually.
Excuse me. I thought we were friends. What do you mean we already told you guys?
Hopefully by the Yeah, hopefully by mid-March I'll have something solid and be able to do that. But yeah, it's coming. Look at Connie. Dang it,
The
see.
calendar, man. We love this content calendar. Great.
So see, I just feel like every time I drop something in Slack, I've got to like take a screenshot of it so I can remember to go back to it later. Because I'm like Amani, of course, is always with us. Like, you said this, that, and I'm like, did I? And I'm like, I did. I definitely did. Damn it. So I'm trying to like start putting those to the side when I get the idea for it. So we'll see. I'm trying, guys. I'm trying, Jennifer. I'm trying. So yeah.
Go on, Bianca.
Oh
yeah, we waiting for yours, darling. We are. I'm waiting for yours.
Look at me all crazy. So right now I'm just trying to finish Sadie's story, which is the Tulsa school fic that I'm working on. I have a lot of stuff in my drafts. But that one I want to finish that one. I feel like I can get it done for March. I feel like I can get it done.
March is popping off, y'all.
Over here. Let me go open Airtable and just matter of fact.
And I have other stuff. You know, I'm always trying to get back to my girl Lavender. What else? I did a little bit of something about you know, because I want to keep working on other schools, so I keep bringing in people that could lead to other schools. I was thinking about
where are these schools? Please tell.
Well, I said Tulsa for one. I know you got New Orleans handled, so that's cool. I'm thinking maybe the Zora School, which is like in the, you know, New York area, I would say. But you know, the rich side.
The rich side.
The upper east
want
side.
a little prep school action up there.
Yeah.
But yeah, just stuff all over, you know, out here doing things.
Are you?
Sounds like.
Sounds like there's gonna be a lot of reading going on in the Hogwarts BS universe.
I know. It's scary to say things though, because you know Amani's gonna be on us though.
Yes.
Like, where are the things?
This is being recorded too, so like this is it will never go away. The internet.
I got to do it now.
Sorry for
y'all.
Thinking this for Amani, but also like Amani. We know that you also are supposed to be writing things, so we see you.
Yeah, that's true.
Yes.
But
all of y'all.
I mean, he's in the chat, so he knows.
We see you.
I would like to just say, because she keeps saying it, that Bianca needs to just control F replace with
that part. Yes.
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 Fiction. Forget about this Hogwarts, this wizarding world life. Like Joe don't even deserve, honestly.
Oh.
That part.
Very
Take it away. I have always wanted to do like a dark story, like that really eggs on the like that tone in the Deathly Hallows book. And I had started it and I couldn't really dive into it the way that I wanted it to. But it was going to be the Phoenix Chronicles, and it was going to follow 3 different people that we kind of saw when he went to the Ministry of Magic, but it would be how they knew what was going on inside the Ministry of Magic after the Ministry had fallen. But then I got lazy. So that might happen. Like the idea is still there. That's a lot of work. Like the more I think about it, I'm like, that would take forever to try and weave these stories. Now it was just going to be really dark. And I was like, I don't know. Dark.
Well, I'm gonna just a couple of things in the chat, and I still have other thoughts. Bianca, Connie is already like, yes, she is Bayana's writing partner, but she's ready to be yours as well. They can just take Hogwarts out, and y'all will just be writing a New York Zora school together. So I just need you to know that's on the table for you.
I saw the thing. I was ignoring the thing.
You can't ignore the thing. Now there's a thing for you to do. So anyway, also, I saw earlier that everyone was saying, well, it may have been Connie as well, but saying please don't get Bayana and Delia started on Zutara fic, but
We can
I
get
would like
started.
to know, are
We
we
can do
going to
that.
be hearing about Zutara fic?
Well, are you?
From other universe?
Are you?
No, what's going on?
You know,
Look, I feel
Patreon.com.
I came here to have a good time, and honestly, I'm feeling so attacked right now. Well, I'm working on a lot of things. Right now, I have a project for myself going on Twitter where I'm just trying to build better writing habits in journal, because like before it was just like write in a fever dream across like a month and then don't write for 5 months. Like that was my writing schedule before, and I just wanted to be more consistent. So right now I have a hashtag writing through 2020 going on Twitter just to keep myself accountable. And in doing that, I've written a lot, and I have like ongoing projects. Like we announced this month that there is going to be a To All the Wizards 2, so that's in works, in process. I also have other Harry Potter things that I have had in drafts and stuff, like similar to what Stacy was saying. I have one, it's more of a funny fic, but after the Ministry has fallen, like the idea of all these like old government workers, because I work for the government, old government workers who are just so stuck in bureaucracy, like the Death Eaters can't get anything done, not because the old workers are doing anything to try and like stop them, just like the Death Eaters are like, okay, we're gonna need a warrant for this person's arrest, and I'm like, well, did you get this signed by so and so? And it's a funny fic. I keep thinking I thought I would get that done because it's drafted like in a rough form, but one day. Zutara, hi. When I keep saying that when I keep saying that I'm writing things I'm not meant to be writing, Connie, stop calling me out. What is happening? I've been writing a lot. So when I say my muse fairy is fickle, like I'm like, I know I have all these projects I'm trying to get done. Mainly To All the Wizards, and then this actual original fic about cosplay that I really want to get done. Instead, I was like, let me watch Avatar, rewatch that, and then I was like, Zutara's always kind of hit. What if I just wrote a little something? And now we're like, well, 2 published fics in, 1 drafted, and then 1 multi-chapter fic. It just kept growing in the amount of chapters. I've written so much Zutara. It's a problem.
I, for one, am really enjoying it. I haven't even been watching Avatar. She pulled me into this hole. So I'm like, if I'm going to be here, I might as well also
try not to
read what you're writing.
Because this is not the brand for Black Wizard History Month. That's all I've been doing. So yeah,
you're writing. You're a Black girl creating. It is part of Black Wizard History Month.
I mean, they use magic, you know?
They do. They have a magic system. So, you know, you can check those out on AO3 where they live. So that's a thing that I'm doing. I don't know what I'm going to do with this multi-chapter fic. Will it see the light? I don't know. Bayana's read part of it, though.
I'll see it.
Yeah, sure.
Do not let me see it.
What are you working on, Bayana? I'm tired of this heat.
So I have to finish the House Students. At some point. I don't really know when. I don't really have a schedule for it, which is weird for me because I usually have schedules for things. But I'm gonna finish it. And I mean, I have been saying since I was writing Beneath the Surface that I wasn't gonna write any more fic. So, we'll see. Clearly that's not the case, but like we'll see. I am currently in like revision stages for like a book that I'm writing and rewrite stages for a different one. So that's where I want to have my focus, but also I too have been only reading Zutara fic for the last.
We have been a problem.
So I can't even really tell you what I'm working on. Like I had to really reach into the back of my mind to think about like what am I actually doing, and what I'm doing is like staring listlessly at my phone and reading stuff on AO3. So there's that. But at some point, I will have things.
it beats like that sometimes.
Yeah.
Is your inspiration curating phase? You're just curating.
Well, I mean, I think at a certain point this is gonna be helpful. Like I could kind of see like it's some like this is gonna like help something. I just don't know what and how yet. Because usually when I read, like it helps whatever. So like,
wait,
I don't feel like
actually,
I'm wasting my time.
I can confirm this has been helping her writing.
Yeah, I don't think it's definitely not a waste of time. It's just like a big time suck, and like it's all I can really focus on. That's not like just making sure things go out on the website on time. So yeah, but I am actively trying to I've like been querying a little bit, but I'm gonna get back to that this year. I'm gonna be like I have a lot of things, and yeah, trying to be like chill about it because I don't want to like
jinx yourself.
Not jinx myself, just like I don't want to talk too much about it until it's like
done.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, as you can see, the panel ranges in like BSU early drafts to like mini drafts to chapter long escapades, like for all these stories. So if you have any characters in Harry Potter that you just want to give a little bit of breath to, like everyone here has some background in doing that, from Angelina Johnson to Lavender Brown to Marietta Edgecombe to self-inserts like Felicity, like there's into Hermione and Dean and Blaze. Like we have all like a range and gamut of characters who, you know, mostly because, you know, they're poor Lavender, who was brown in the movie for like, you know, until she got an actual speaking role, and then, you know, she's blonde and white. These are all characters that we all like identified with in the stories being Black at some point, and where we have to give them their speaking roles, because if you look at the video for Harry Potter and speaking roles of their marginalized characters, you will be sorely disappointed in how many seconds / minutes devoted to each person. And I think that Hogwarts BSU is a really good representation of when all of us are seeing things that we want to identify with someone in a really like major series that we really love, and actually giving a little bit more like breadth and depth to them. So hopefully everyone watching has got a really good idea and view into that. If you don't mind, could you share with them where they can find you, and anything that they can chime into you to talk about, if they want to, you know, Zutara pick it up with you, or they want to expound upon what the Zora School looks like in New York, or what does the Gryffindor Quidditch team do after victory, the Battle of Hogwarts, you know? Where can they find you to do all these discussions?
I'm on Instagram barely, at the next book on my list. And I am on Twitter all the time, talking all kinds of shit about all kinds of different things, but mostly books and Kentucky basketball at _next_book. At me.
And what would like to be added for
you could at me about anything, especially if you're into sports, because that's yes, do that. But also anything Harry Potter related, anything Hogwarts related. If you like the fic, if you've got any ideas, go ahead and at me. I'm on there often, so just do the thing. Do the thing.
Well, you can find me on Twitter at Bink Ramos. I just be on there doing stuff, talking mess, mostly using GIFs.
Yes,
GIF game is strong.
Yeah, her GIF game's pretty good. It's
not it. I just be on there. I think if you look at my feed, it's like all Harry Potter and Black Girls Create. So why don't you
love to see it?
Get into the Black Girls Create Slack too, because I'd be in there. That's where the mess
all
really
the time.
goes.
Yes, that is. Yes,
there's like light mess on Twitter, but all the good mess is in
all quality mess.
Yes, the department of portraits thrives.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You can find me at Delia Dumbledore on Twitter. That's mainly where I be. Probably don't look elsewhere. I'm not on those places that much. Also Black Girls Create, because I'm also the marketing director. I do serious stuff sometimes. Crazy. Just so you know, if you do follow me on Twitter, March is going to be a big pivot in content. It's about to be Zutara all the time. Yeah, but you can also talk to me about, please talk to me about K-dramas. Oh my gosh. Like, it's just me and Portia out here. Like,
occasionally
Maggie. Occasionally Maggie as well. But
and then apparently Eliana's into it, which I'm about to have to hit up Eliana and be like,
girl, what?
Okay, well, Eliana, what's going on with these K-dramas?
We need to look. I need to talk about them. I'm currently watching one. Anyways, we won't go into it right now.
In the latest Fire Chat episode that is currently out. If you join the Black Girls Create Patreon, you can get some fire K-drama recs, and we want you to join us and talk to us about them.
Please. Seriously.
I am on Twitter at Yana_Hollows. That's mostly, I'm on Instagram under the same name, but I haven't posted since like October, so.
Just don't like Instagram.
Yeah. I generally, like, I'm cool with it, and then I forget to do anything with it for long
stretches of time.
Yeah. Oh yeah. This might be the longest though, but like, yeah. I mean, like, talk to me about, Harry Potter, but maybe not. Yes, talk to me about Harry Potter if you like #Wizard Team and like listen to the podcast. Do that. But also Zutara and writing and like, I don't know. Anyone have any injuries? We can talk about our bodies. And yeah, I don't know. I'll just out here.
Mainly Zutara.
I'm trying to simmer. Not trying to simmer. I just have to like. Definitely hit me up because I will have thoughts. I just have to get my life back in like the regular. I have to get the hours back.
See, that's what she's thinking. I'm over here like I'm just biding my time till March when I can like be loud about it because I'm trying to be.
Which I will just be like retweeting Delia while trying to like get back to my life because it really has been a problem. Y'all don't know, but it's like, you know, when like it's like my secret addiction or whatever. Like, everybody else is like, Bayana's out here doing all this Black Wizard history stuff, and I'm like, that's what y'all think. So yeah, but yeah, I'm just Twitter.
And then for me, so if you're here, you know what Black Girls Create is, so you can go blackgirlscreate.org, see all the wonderful Hogwarts VSU stuff. I review books on there as well. I don't know the next time I'll have one ready. I'll see. I have a lot of books that I'm reading concurrently, but also not concurrently at all. And yeah, you can find me at Portia_Avi on Twitter if you want to talk about K-dramas, random like fashion. Oh my gosh. If you're watching Project Runway and you want to go watch that video, let's do it because he's annoying the crap and I gotta go.
So bad.
I gotta get rid of him. Love Peachy Mariano. Awesome for him being like I've been loving it. Anything Real Housewives, Married to Medicine, into that too.
That too. So
but
now see, I'm like in this haze. I'm telling you,
that's the same haze I was in for K-dramas.
That comes on today, actually, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Doctor Who, y'all. We are also into that.
Doctor Who's cool. Real Housewives.
I just remembered because that comes on, and I need to watch out for spoilers because it's already aired in. Okay, anyways.
Wait, I'm sorry. I just in a moment, like, wait, today is whenever we see more like Mimi and like Portia drama. No, something's happening. Something's coming up.
Don't make me want to start watching Real Housewives again. That's just such a dedication. It's just so like it's been so long that I just live from like watching you guys' recaps, like going in there. But
just watch the reunion specials for every year that you haven't like watched.
Yeah.
And then watch the latest season. It is amazing.
God, I'm not ready.
Yeah. You guys had me watching it. I got up to season 4 and I was still like, I hate all of these people, but I want to know what's happening
that
now.
part.
So I need to just go watch the reunion specials then.
I mean, that's yeah.
It's real.
I watched the season 9 reunion special without having I've watched maybe like 2 random episodes. My mom was watching it, and then I watched the 9 reunion special, and then I still didn't go back for a long time. And then I was like, oh, maybe I should watch the season, but you don't have to. Just whenever you feel like you want mess.
Yes.
See, I watched Love After Lockup for that, and I've never seen anything.
Lord.
Oh, it is the messiest. Oh,
I keep hearing about it. I'm like, nah, that's not my jam.
Nah,
My jam is
I watched that, and I'm like, my life is so normal compared to this. Like,
same.
wow.
It's like Sam was like, oh, wow. Let's have a whole like fight over whose idea it was to open a boutique first or whatever. Like,
oh my God.
Is this a thing? Nah.
Did old girl ever make her clothing line? Did Sheree ever?
She by Sheree?
Nope.
I do know that part.
No. She did not. She has
She did have her house though. She did
a
get her house.
that says joggers, and I don't even think it actually went on sale.
No, it was only t-shirts, right? It was like.
And I remember seeing pictures of joggers.
Yeah, joggers. But I don't think they actually went on sale. It was like a preview situation, and then
like the whole She for Sheree line that was like did she have a walk? It was something like random.
It was like a website. I don't know, but I remember that day very well because I don't even know if I was having a bad. I was just having a day, and then Portia dropped that link, and I was like oh shit.
No. Before she had a link for a website with clothes, she had She by Sheree like season 3 or 4.
Yeah, and she had like a commercial or something. But
it was something random. But yeah, catch me for all things Real Housewives and fashion because I'm there. And I guess that's it. We have officially finished the Comeback Kickback. Thank you for joining us. Yeah. Hopefully you've made it through all 6 sessions with us. If you want to see more really cool panels and discussions, you know where to follow us. You know which podcasts to listen to, hopefully. You can find them all on the website.
Yep. And we still have 1 more week left of Black Wizard History Month. So
yes.
Check out the daily website for content this week.
More stories soon come.
Soon come. Apparently March is going to be popping off thanks to Stacey and Bianca. And Amani, because Amani did say. I remember he said.
I may not have a part 2 available.
Wow. Black History season.
Black
Crazy.
History year. Okay. I did not know because
it's pretty long so far.
Send me your stuff, but it's not going out daily. I want to see it.
All right.
Bye, you guys.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.